Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.
Are you spending a lot of time looking for setups and struggling for faster lap times? Are you tired of searching online for answers? Would you like to get setups, analysis and tutorials from some of the best sim racers in the world like Ralph Alla, Mitchell de Jong, Martin Krunker, Josh Rogers and many more? If so, virtualracingschool.com is the answer you've been looking for. VRS data packs provide hot laps from our professional coaches for you to analyse and replicate. They provide tutorials that walk you through the fastest laps and what the pros did to achieve the best times. And they provide the setups you need to ensure your car is competitive in both oval and road racing. If you're ready to get faster and reach more podiums sooner than later, just go to virtualracingschool.com and sign up for a free account today.
A very good evening and welcome to Evolution Sim Racing European GT Championship. This is not round 3 from Austria as it says on screen. This is round 4 from Zandvoort. I'm joined by Dara Thacker, who should be joining me in the comms booth. Are you there, Dara? And can you hear me okay?
I'm here. Yeah, I'm here, James. I can hear you perfectly. Yeah, I mean, it's not quite Austria. It's a little bit of an elevation change from Austria, to be fair. I don't think it could get any more different in terms of in terms of the elevation than Austria.
No, absolutely. Well, when we've focused all of the last week or so on trying to get at some of these glitchy gremlins, and we fall over at the title screen. So, but yeah, welcome to Evolution Sim Racing. That's just how we roll. So, yeah, we're in for a good night's racing tonight. It's the first of our 90-minute rounds. I don't know what your thoughts are about the 90-minute race, Dara, and how the drivers are going to approach this differently.
Yeah, I think it's going to be intriguing, really, because it is the first one that we've had so far this season, isn't it? After the 3 60-minute races that we've had, it's going to change up that strategy a little bit. We talked to the drivers at the end of the broadcast 2 weeks ago now about what they thought about the 90-minute race, and they did talk about how it would change the strategies and change the prospects for all of them. I think it does add a bit of a curveball in, and it will mean that, you know, there's a little bit more lapping to do. There's a little bit more to think about in terms of the strategy. I think some may try and shorten it to that one stop, but that's going to be very difficult indeed. We saw in, you know, races gone by that drivers could just about get to a 45-minute mark, but it's not guaranteed. So we could see some fuel saving to get it done on one stop. We'll have to wait and see, but it's going to add, I think, a bit of a dynamic we haven't seen so far in this season, and you know, it's going to keep it nice and fresh for us up here, isn't it?
It's yeah, we are certainly heading into the unknown, that's for sure. So I think one of the drivers for this evening, driver for change, not driver of a car. One of the drivers for change is going to be the 60% fuel cap that we've put on these 90-minute races. So I think from talking to some of the guys like Marius a couple of weeks ago, some were saying that they thought the one stop would potentially be achievable, but I mean the fuel saving would be massive, the lift and coast, so I don't know whether that's even going to be worthwhile. Going to be really interesting for us to see how this plays out, so we'll come to that in a little while. So thank you to everybody that's joining us in the stream. So if you could let us know if the audio levels are correct. We've usually got one of our online spotters, Rob Mackay, joining us. So yeah, if you want to let us know, Rob, if the audio levels are correct. We have done some changes to the stream setups, so we've changed quite a few things around. So fingers crossed, we are hoping for a better, more stable stream tonight. But as usual, as we know, all sorts of things can happen when you're doing this live. So if we do have any kind of bugs or glitches, then, you know, apologies and please bear with us. We'll do our best to get it fixed. So I guess moving on to the formalities, unlike the title screen said, we are at round 4 in Zandvoort. So yeah, I don't know how I've managed to miss that one. So 3 rounds completed, 3 rounds out of 10. So round 4 tonight, the first 90-minute race. We'll talk about the track in a moment. We then, next, in 2 weeks' time, we move to Imola for a 60-minute race, normal time slot. Then we move to Le Mans, second of our 90-minute races, followed by round 7 in Catalonia, and then round 8 in Portimao, Portugal, for our final 90-minute race. Penultimate round at Spa-Francorchamps, so a circuit that everybody absolutely loves and knows inside out. And then the final round at Silverstone. So things are definitely hotting up in the championship. Things are getting a bit more serious now, and I think tonight, hopefully, we're going to get some good racing. I'm hoping for us, Dara, that things can be a little bit steadier, having that extra 30 minutes. Fingers crossed. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not. Well, I mean, it depends really. I mean, you can probably see it both ways. You know, with the extra 30 minutes that we have, it means that drivers are more likely to be a little bit more cautious in the early stages. But at the same time, there's that little bit more risk of leading for quite some time and getting to the traffic. That little bit more fatigue can start to set in towards the end of a 90-minute, and especially with the strategy. However that will run for these guys, I think it is just going to be an interesting one. In the same way that the opening race of the season at the Sachsenring that we had was a bit of a bit of a starter-upper for the season. Drivers will just kind of feel it out. I think it's going to be a little bit more of the same for the 90-minute races, because even though it's just that extra 30 minutes, the race can almost completely change in its dynamics, especially when you have to think about that extra pit stop that is likely to come in for the strategy. So it is going to be different, but I think after the first 30 minutes, I think we're going to see drivers settle back into that rhythm, and it probably will be that little bit calmer for a while, because drivers just want to get to the end. You don't really want to be throwing away good points, and especially if you've been working for over an hour, you don't want to throw them away towards the end.
Yeah, no, and I think also the other thing that drivers, I think knowing that you've got that extra 30 minutes is probably likely to lead to a bit calmer first part of the race. So that's what we're hoping for anyway. That's the theory around this Zandvoort circuit. So, I mean, what do you think about the circuit, Dara? I mean, I've drove this a couple of times. I've done a couple of officials here. I think from what I've heard, some of the drivers, you either love it or hate it. Me personally, to drive, I love it. To commentate on, I don't know. But certainly some of the corner names are definitely, I'll stick with the numbers. I'll leave the names to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it looks a good, fast-flowing circuit, and one that should deliver us some good racing.
Yeah, well, I mean, in terms of the corner names, you're going to get Tarzan out of me for turn 1, and that is going to be it. I can't pronounce some of these, and I don't want to insult any of our wonderful Dutch ESR contingent from absolutely butchering some of the names.
We have quite a few Dutch drivers, so
we do.
The risk is to get it wrong, and then we'll never hear the end of it. So
exactly, I've had a fair few mispronunciations in my time, and I'm not gonna keep it up tonight, I don't think. So I'm just gonna probably stick with the numbers. But you're right, it is a great track to drive, and it has a beautiful flowing nature to it. I think really helped in part by the changes that were brought in the last couple of years to facilitate Formula One, particularly down at turns 3, down at the final corner as well, with the banking that was added. So I do think it's a great track to drive. GT3s, I'm going to be honest, I haven't seen a great deal of GT racing around this circuit. It's not one that you often go to, particularly on iRacing official calendars. So it is going to be an interesting one. I think we will see some good racing. You can go side by side, particularly on the exit of Tarzan at turn 1 into turns 2 and 3, and then there's other parts of the circuit as well. That middle sector, 8, 9, 10, it's quite wide through there. You can go side by side, and there are a couple of straights where it is possible to make some moves. The difficulty will come in the fact that you have to keep yourself quite close to the car in front to be able to feel like you can go for a move. It's not a track like we saw at the Red Bull Ring where you can make these lunges and stick in the slipstream necessarily. So I think that dynamic will have to be one to watch, but in the early stages, drivers will probably be trying to look for moves everywhere before it dies down a touch.
Yeah, I think there's some big open inviting corners, but we'll have to see how that plays out. Now, as you know, Dara, this is one of my most favourite parts of my 2 weeks, is when we move to the Rob Mackay Drive It Like You've Hired It track guide, which you're going to kindly talk us through in a moment. But something a little bit different this week is that our beloved Mr. Mackay put us in a really awkward position this week, because he didn't hire a vehicle, he actually borrowed one without the owner's permission. So, not that Danny knows yet, but Rob's actually borrowed Danny Lee's Porsche Cup car. So, nobody was in at the ESR headquarters, and Rob took the keys to the garage, got Danny's car, and decided he was going to take it to Zandvoort and give us a lap round. So if you're watching, Danny, then hopefully you've got it all back in one piece, and hopefully Rob enjoyed it. But without further ado, we'll let you talk us through the lap, Dara.
Yes, well, it feels slightly wrong to talk about a crime that we're currently seeing, but I don't think that Rob was aware that Danny did have that camera put into the helmet, so he's not necessarily aware that this footage is available. We've managed to get it from the ether, and he went through turn 1 pretty nicely indeed. We'll see if he thanks us for the footage by the end of the lap. He's coming up on some slower traffic. That could be Andrew Fellows. In fact, I believe it is Andrew Fellows going a little bit slowly through turn 2, but Rob's just going to negotiate his way through turn 3, using the banking to his advantage. That's going to be critical in this race, using that little bit of banking, using your line through there to your advantage to get the run through 4 and 5. Difficult to make a move up here. You can see that it's a little bit blind, very narrow as well, and with the nature of the curves, it's difficult to really judge how the cars around you are going to fare. Through turn 6, unlikely to see side by side through there before we get in towards this middle sector where you will see a lot of drivers going for moves. You can see how wide the track is. The curve on the outside is relatively nice in comparison to other parts of the circuit, and again, quite high medium speed corners. There's a lot of room for differing lines at this part of the track, going a little bit wider into this left-hander to get the exit onto this back straight could be an option. Keeping it tighter just to defend the position is also an interesting way of doing it. In towards the stadium section now, and you have to really be careful about where you're putting the car through to. I say the same section, the stadium's not here, obviously, with Rob pushing away the fans, but he's got through there quite nicely indeed. And it's about getting the run through this corner, the penultimate corner, because the final corner is going to be pretty much flat out around the banking, and that's where we're going to see most of the overtaking, down in towards turn number 1. But a great little lap from Rob, kept it in check, and he's going to run it just close enough to the wall, not going to damage Danny's car. But that's a lap around Zandvoort. I hope he's got it back to Danny without him noticing, or at least until now, I guess.
Lovely lap from Rob. Lovely lap from Rob. I mean, these hot laps just raise a couple of questions for me. I mean, Andrew Fellows must be like his kit man, carrying his kit bag. I mean, he's always there, isn't he? Somewhere on the lap, getting a freebie in and getting on the track. So I don't know quite how Andrew always manages it, but yeah, we'll have to have a little word with him. Maybe if we interview him after the race, we can see what's happening there. The other thing to let you know is that Rob did tell me that since he'd borrowed Danny Lee's Porsche Cup car, he didn't actually need to hire one. So the money that he saved, he's decided to do a little bit of a kind of raffle and a draw for some of our younger viewers that want to get into gaming and sim racing and things like that. So he's actually put up a prize of £10, so 10 great British pounds in cash. And I've got the names here. I'm just going to draw them out at the moment, Dara. So just 1 second, if you just bear with me as I draw them out. And the winner is Brett Mackay. So Brett Mackay, congratulations. You've won £10 from Rob Mackay. So please contact Rob to arrange the collection of your winnings. Congratulations. And if you tune in another couple of weeks' time, you can also be in the next draw, because Rob said he's going to keep this going every 2 weeks. So I mean, they say that lightning doesn't often strike twice, Dara, but I think Brett Mackay could be in with a very, very good chance of that. So yeah, congratulations to him, and thanks to Rob, as always, for doing that hot lap for us. So, moving on. So now we've got to the serious stuff. We've got the championship. So just a little bit about 3 new teams that are entering the championship. So these have joined us since 2 weeks ago. So the first team is LS Racing 03. We're made up of Dean Tyler in the GT3 car and Lawrence Didapper in the GT4 Mercedes car. So they're going to be in the Pro Teams Championship. They're not featured in the standings yet because they haven't yet raced with us. So we thought we'd just give them a mention and a shout out. We then got a second new team of Axis X RDSA, made up of Joshua Cowan and Justin Eloff Justin in the GT4 and Joshua in the GT3. And one new Pro-Am team, which is DXT2, so Dexterous Motorsports 2, made up of Owen Seward and Sean Clark. So, with that, I'll let you talk us through the driver standings, Dara, for the GT3 standings for the drivers.
It's been an interesting start to the season. We have got a couple of drivers that look like they're starting to pull out in front just that little bit, and none more so than Anton Kalo in that McLaren. The Finnish driver for MK Simsport has been pretty dominant up to this point. 2 wins and a second place puts him in a very, very comfortable position in the championship. Has that 46-point gap back to Will Soper for the Axis Conehead team, and he's not even been on the podium yet this season, but his consistency with an average finishing position of 5th has got him into the top 2 in the championship for the time being, at least. Jason Baxter, it'll be rounding out the top 3 as we go into tonight. He's ahead of Matt Hoyland on countback, as those two are tied on 85 points. With Gianni Terhaar, the first of the Dutch drivers, who's hoping to gain some points, I'm sure, maybe in his home race tonight from P5. Ben Bennyworth and Joe Sparrow, 6th and 7th, 2 British drivers for Quartermats, Motorsport Bravo, and of course for JSD. Will be looking to move up from their 62 and 53 points respectively. I think consistency needed for them. Yannis Albert arrived last week or 2 weeks ago at the Red Bull Ring, and for the Minecraft Racing team, he was able to get himself a win, which puts him in a fantastic position to try and build up something of a championship challenge as we get further into the season. Joe Glass will go into tonight's event ninth with Zelinchkas in the top 10. Kalle Leskinen, the second Finn, will be 11th. He's looking to try and get himself into the top 10 for the first time after he got a P4 last time out. And for Clyde Veyer, the Maltese driver, let's see if he can get towards the top 10 in the next couple of weeks. He's not a million miles away, 5 points off Zelinchkas in P12.
Fantastic. As we just load the standings for the GT4s, so it's Marius Hibmer taking an early lead in the GT4 championships with those 2 second places and that win last time out, with William Humphrey not being present. Stephen Donnelly has passed William as well. So Stephen's jumped up into P2 for the JSD racing team. So fantastic performances for Stephen so far. Consistency paying him well there, putting him in second place. And then William Humphrey with those 2 first wins, and then missed the last round due to being at Spa with the Glasstec team on a day out or a weekend away. So yeah, that's really cost him. There's no drop rounds in these championships. So yeah, William's going to have to work hard to get that back. Although I do have a feeling that we all know where the inevitable is going to end with that. So yeah, we'll have to see how it goes. 4th place, Pedro Luis da Silva with that fantastic podium last time out at the Red Bull Ring, closely followed by Bobby Moss for the Minecraft racing team with that P2. So Bobby was, I think Marius was just following him and doing the fuel saving last time out, if you remember. We've then got Martin Kenyon for DXT Motorsports in P6 with 78 points, followed by Linus Petkevicius in 7th on 64 points, and Nils Kula in 8th. I don't think Nils has had quite the start to the season that he was hoping for, with a 9th, a 13th and an 8th. So yeah, I'm fully hoping and expecting to see Nils kind of power through and start to get into those kind of top 5, top 6 finishing positions. We've got Malcolm Coates in P9 on 49 points, followed by Evan Main in P10, only 1 point behind. The last 2 drivers, Tristan Engelstadt and Ryan Stringer. Ryan's first round was last time out with a P5, sorry. Can't see that, my glasses not doing me much justice there on this smaller screen. So yeah, he'll be looking to build on that for in tonight's race. So we'll move on to the pro team standings, Dara. So this is where the cash prizes come in. So I'll let you talk us through the standings of the pro teams.
Yeah, the cash prizes where, I'd love to be part of this, but I'm just not quite good enough, James. Jaden's got an Marius Hibmer more than part of it. They're leading the championship for the pro teams as they have amassed 169 points in the opening 3 races. Been really good consistency from them to see them towards the top of the tree, and as it stands, they'd be heading straight for £100, but there's a long, long way to go in the season, and they are being chased down by the Rage Against the Game Esports Ruby team with Jason Baxter and Evan Main looking to pop themselves there or thereabouts. Glasstec, Joe Glass and William Humphrey, they'll be looking to get themselves right near the front of the field. I know Joe was saying that he felt it was unlikely he'd get to the podium, but we'll have to see if he can almost push himself and his teammate, who's been improving week by week, particularly in the GT3 Championship on a Thursday night. Where can they go from P3 tonight? MK Simsport, Anton Kalo and Jelle Damstra going from 4th with the Minecraft Racing team after only a round or 2, find themselves 5th. And already heading for a decent cash prize and a trophy as well. Axis Conehead and Quad Dash, they're tied really on 124 points in 6th and in 7th, with the monetary places being rounded out by Flatline Racing Red, SRB Motorsport and HSR Motorsport, HSR, a long way behind the top 9 as Zelinchkas and Petkevicius have just about put themselves over the 100-point threshold. Can they improve tonight? We'll have to wait and see. There's another Quad Dash car and the random races in the top 12, but really that focus is on the top 5. It's a very tight championship indeed.
It is, mate. And you know what's kind of really made things interesting for me? I mean, it's a tight championship anyway. You've got Jaden Scott and Marius, both kind of solid, regular, consistent finishers. We've obviously got Yanis arriving in the championship, teaming up with Bobby, and Yanis had an absolute stunning drive last time out. He's not leading the way at the moment in the qualifying, but let's say he does. One thing that it's made clear to me, Dara, is that Yanis arriving has put some pressure on Joe Glass in my mind, because I think previously William was a banker for kind of hauling in the points in the GT4s, as we know, absolutely amazing driver. And Joe was kind of playing kind of wingman to William and had to score decent points. But that dynamic's changed a little bit now, hasn't it? Because now you've got Yanis coming in, who's probably going to be maybe not quite as dominant at every single circuit, but he's certainly going to be up there for the wins. And Bobby's up there as well in the GT4s. So now Joe's got to deliver. So, yeah, no pressure, Joe, when you watch this back. But, yeah, I think that's made this Yanis arriving in this championship for the pro teams has made it even more exciting than it was before. So, and with Anton Kalo and Jelle Damstra also in the mix, this is going to be absolutely fantastic. Not quite the same story in the Pro-Ams Teams Championship. So we've got a little bit of a lead for Matt Hoyland and Martin Kenyon for the DXT, the Dexterous Motorsports team. So they're leading at the moment. They had quite a big gap going into the Red Bull Ring, and then that's been closed down by Joe Sparr and Stephen Donnelly, now only 4 points behind. So that's going to be interesting to see what they can do tonight. We've then got Rage Against the Game Esports Diamond of Clyde Veyer and Malcolm Coates in third with 80 points. We've got Andre Muntien and Nils Kohler in fourth with 76 points. And I do think that Nils can have some stronger performances than he's had. So I think watch this space with them. We've then got the first of the Quartermass Motorsport teams. So the Quartermass Motorsport Bravo of Ben Bennyworth and Ian Chambers. I think both of those drivers are with us tonight. They are, as I look to my left-hand screen. Just outside the top five, we've got Dean Sheesby and Rob Gregg. Dean's been away for a couple of weeks. Dean is back tonight. It has to be said, shout out to Liam Fraser, who's done absolutely fantastic substituting these guys. So Liam's used his two tickets now, so to speak. So it's Dean and Rob all the way to the end. We've then got the Camé GP2 Porsche of Jim Fox and John Ludbrook. So Jim can't be with us tonight. It doesn't look like John is with us either, so those guys won't score any points. We've then got Adam Baker and Callum Morrow in 8th for LS Racing 002, followed by Flatline Pink, again, new team that came into the championship last week of Kalle Leskinen and Daniel Poole. So we know that Kalle Leskinen's going to be quick, so probably upwards is the only way they're going to go. And then P10 of Matthew Jones and Nick Stubb. Matthew Jones is racing tonight, so I did say he was last time, but he wasn't, and tonight I haven't said it and he is, so I've just seen him, so it's going to be good to commentate on Matt. Welcome back to the series. 11th, Louis Plath and Pete Paver for LS Racing 001, Suma GP2 of Robin Aston and Scott Kostrick in P12. We then got Andy Chell and Simon Hunt P13, Mission R of Ryan Blackie and Dan Cross in 14th, and rounding out the top 15 we've got Dean Sargent and Jason Haddington, who I don't think will be racing with us, Dara. So we will have to see how that pans out. Before we jump into quali, we've got 8 minutes left. Big thank you to our series sponsors, Trophy AI, VRS, Camé for the personalised trophies, GP2 Group, and last but by no means least, the Motorsports UK eSport division for giving ESR the status as a recommended community. So thank you very much for that. And before we get into the qualifying session that's got 8 minutes to go, you will see at the top of the chat in the stream there is a link to the live timing provided by SDK Gaming, where if you wish, if you're engineering some of the drivers, or if you just want to follow on an iPad, you can click that link and you can configure the live timing screen so you can follow the guys as they go through the race. So without further ado, let's jump into the qualifying session. And as we speak, Dara, it looks like we've only got 8 minutes left because, as usual, we started a little bit late. And that looks to me like we've got Jason Baxter and William Humphrey taking the lead in both classes.
Yeah, really interesting to see how they're going to be able to manage this. And if they can keep this up really towards the end of the session. Of course, there's not going to be many laps left for too many drivers, as we have got a little ways through the session, but it doesn't really matter because we are yet to see too much racing action. Bobby Moss is another driver I think it's going to be interesting to see where he can go. Of course, teammate to Yannis Hilbert, who's up in the top 3 in that GT3 class, but it's a decent gap, isn't it, for Jason Baxter? 0.3 of a second to anybody else at a circuit like Zandvoort really is a hefty margin, and so really impressive to see him so high up in terms of the ranking. Of course, he was doing so well in the opening couple of races. Technological issues are really one of the reasons why he's in the championship position that he finds himself in. But yeah, hugely, particularly in a series like this where there's going to be a huge amount of difference between the cars.
Yeah, I've noticed some banter going on. I think Yanis arriving at the Red Bull Ring ruffled a few feathers. So I know that him and Gianni have been doing a bit of practicing, and I think Jason has I think the gauntlet has been thrown down, and he's obviously taken the challenge really well with a 32-2 sat there in pole possession. So it's going to be interesting to see how this race plays out. Of course, it's going to be very strategic tonight, isn't it? It's not just going to be about out-and-out pace. I think that, do you want to lead and have someone sat behind you fuel saving, or do you want to be the person sat behind a group of 3 or 4? I don't know, Dara. I think for me, it's probably going to be somewhere in the middle. I mean, if you remember at Red Bull Ring, we had some fantastic racing from Aruma Zilinskas, Will Soper, I think it was Gianni Terhar, and there was a 4th one. Do you remember? There was four drivers just glued together for lap after lap. So I don't know. Hopefully we might see something similar tonight.
Yeah, I think we will, to be honest. And I think this is a track where you can fuel save just that little bit more. Long, medium speed corners where, you can have differing lines. It's much easier just to lift and coast through some of these corners than it will be at tracks like the Red Bull Ring. So I think we will see drivers trying to stretch this as long as they can in terms of the opening stint. It's definitely, we are going to see a one-stop. I'm convinced that someone's going to be able to do it. There's going to be a few that at least try it. But it is just really that case of who is able to really just be able to keep up that pace whilst fuel saving. We saw it at the Red Bull Ring, didn't we? We've mentioned it a couple of times, but we did see that kind of racing where drivers were seemingly fuel saving while racing, which is why they were staying so close together. We're absolutely going to be seeing that, at least in the opening half of the race today. You'd have to say that if they're fuel saving in the opening stint, they're going to have to fuel save in the second stint. So I think this is going to be a race of fine margins, and we could see battles that last all race long, and we could see some groups forming that you could leave. Obviously, don't leave the broadcast, but you probably could and come back in an hour and see that they're pretty much in the same position as to where you left them in. So it's going to be, I think, a race of who blinks first. I think that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know kind of what the 60% fuel cap will lead to in terms of how long it will be before the pit stop is needed. I've just seen in the chat there, we've got Joe Sparrow joining in the chat. So good evening, Joe, and good luck for this evening. He's telling us that there's no chance of a one stop because you'd have to save at least 10 minutes of fuel in 35 minutes. So he says wish him luck. Well, we wish all our drivers luck, Joe, not just you. So yeah, so but I mean, is that real, or is it just Joe kind of trick us into it, Dara? But either way, it's going to be interesting to find out. I think 60% should probably get us to 35 to 40 minutes, I think. So yeah. 35 would give us an hour and 10. So yeah, it is going to be incredibly difficult. Oh.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. There's someone's going to try it. I'm convinced. I won't be told otherwise. Even if the evidence is in my face that it's impossible, I will still be convinced someone's going to give it a go. I think it is going to be a race where we are going to see a lot of those cars sticking it around there. It's going to be interesting. That's for sure. I mean, Joe is categorically telling me it's not possible. Which means I kind of want to see somebody do it now. Even if it is impossible, it'd be even better just to see someone do it. And then Joe might be able to try it next race.
I hope that nobody does do it, because the whole reason we set this up with the 60% fuel limit was on these 90 minutes was to try and
they have to.
Yeah, absolutely. So we try and throw a bit of strategy. And I mean, it's quite easy for me and Rob Mackay to throw these things in when I'm sat here and he's sat just doing a hot lap once a week. So yeah, I mean, I don't think Joe Glass was as keen, but never mind. He's currently in 10th place, the returning driver from his little holiday, his little soiree out to Spa. So yeah, 10th, I would imagine, is probably where Joe kind of sees himself. As we look through some of the results, as we've got the last kind of 1 minute 30 to go. So great qualifying from Jaden Scotton there in 7th. Surprise for me is Anton Kalo. So Anton down in 8th place. So, you know, early front runner, shall we say. And I think from what Anton has said in previous interviews that Anton does quite a bit of practice for these races. So yeah, I'm a little bit surprised to see him down in 8th, but again, maybe the car is set up more with a race run, although you can have different setups for the 2 sessions. So yeah, I'm not really sure. Got Adam Baker in 11th. We've got Joe Sparrow that tells us he's definitely not doing a 1-stop in 12th. So not bad from Joe. Dean Tyler, the new driver, joining in P13. Dean Sheesby back from holiday in P14. Then we got Andy Chell. Andy couldn't join us last time out because he wasn't well. So yeah, P15 for Andy. So that's a reasonable result for Andy. We've got 20 odd seconds left, Dara. Any of the GT4s that stand out?
Let's have a look. I wouldn't say particularly. Niels Kulop, I think, could be a driver we look to see getting a little bit higher up the order. He's down in P8. Evan Main, of course, going well, at least in the team's championship, down in P14. We'll see if Evan Main can jump himself up the order a bit, but I don't think there's much surprise to see that we've got William Humphrey, Mario Zibma, Justin Aloff, Tristan Engelstadt, and Bobby Moss all in the top 6. Pedro Luis de Silva, great from him, of course, coming off the back of a podium in the last couple of weeks. He's in the top 3 as well, so I don't think there's too many surprises, but I think it's going to create a fantastic looking race for us, James.
Hope so. Well, if you don't mind doing the honours, Dara, we will run through the grid before we get underway with our 90-minute chilled out, relaxed race.
Yeah, this is you know, James, I've done many a long endurance broadcast, you know, where we've been on for 4 or 5 hours when nothing has happened. So this is going to be an absolute breeze, even if the track action dries up somewhat. But let's have a look at the grid then. Jason Baxter will lead us to green, the British driver who's just jumped across the North Sea to put himself on pole position there. 32.2 was the benchmark, and no one got within 3.5 tenths. Gianni Terhar, the home hero, coming as close as he could for the Quad Dash Racing team, but he is only good enough for second, holding off the race winner from the Ripple Ring 2 weeks ago, Yannis Hilbert. The Minecraft Racing team not quite able to dig out that lap and get himself onto the front row. Ben Bennyworth in the top 4. Quartermaster, I think, going to be delighted with that. And, of course, had that quiet race at the Red Bull Ring. Let's see if he can kind of get it into the mix a little bit more tonight. Kalle Leskinen and Will Soper. Kalle Leskinen, the first of the Finnish drivers leading the GT3 Elite standings on a Thursday night. He'll be looking to move forward from 5th. Jaden Scotton and the second of the Finns, Anton Kalo, make up row number 4. We've got Auramas Linskas, the Lithuanian, or the first of the Lithuanians, starting on the 5th row alongside Joe Glass. We'll see if he can move forward from the top, from just inside the top 10. Adam Baker and Joe Sparrow making up row number 6. The 2 Brits will be just ahead of Dean Tyler, the first of the Americans tonight. He will start P13 in the 333 entry with Dean Sheesby, the Moonshiners Racing Club driver, a couple of seconds off the pace, but good enough for P14. Then we get to a bit of a gaggle of cars who maybe didn't quite get the lap in qualifying that they were hoping to do so. That includes Andy Chell and Matthew Jones, and all British row 8. Andre Muntian and Lewis Plath in 17th and 18th. The Romanian and the German looking to move forward from there. Andrew Fellows and Owen Seward round out the top 20, and they will start on row number 10. And almost as if we planned it that way. There's 20 GT3s, then we start with the GT4s. Perfect, isn't it? It's almost like it's a completely separate grid, which it kind of is, but it's easier to show like this, isn't it? William Humphrey, though, will be on pole for the GT4s. He's had a great start to the season, as you'd expect. Marius Hittmer will be looking to keep him honest in that Flatline Racing green entry. Pedro Luis de Silva and Justin Eloff, P3 and P4, are ahead of Tristan Engelstadt. 5 nationalities inside the top 5, exactly the kind of international flair that you get in ESR, which is fantastic to see. Bobby Moss is in 6th, ahead of Stephen Donnelly and Niels Kula, which makes actually 7 nationalities in the top 8, would you believe, with the Latvian and the Irishman on row 4 in class. Chris Jennings and Martin Kenyon, an all-British 5th row ahead of Lawrence Adapa. He's not quite in his home race, but it's as close as it's going to be until we get to Spa for Lawrence Adapa. He will start P11 ahead of the second of the Lithuanians in Linus Petkevicius, who will start 12th. Nick Stubb in his home race is ahead of Evan Main. Jelle Damstra in his home race is ahead of Ryan Stringer. They're on rows 7 and 8 in class. Malcolm Coates and Callum Morrow 37th and 38th with Simon Hunt and then Daniel Paul rounding out the top 40 overall, top 20 in the class. I think that should be it, unless we have any more. No, that's it. It's perfectly judged, isn't it? With everybody
we couldn't have worked
the
that any better, Dara, really, could we?
I don't think so. Oh, we may have a couple more at the back looking at that overall timing tower. I think we've got Ian Chambers and Owen Seward, but apart from that, I think they must have joined a little bit late. But it's a good-looking race. 21 drivers in each class. This is going to be fantastic, James. It
is, and hopefully the demand on the technology isn't too much, and we get to stay fully working all the way through. So yeah, we're gonna, with it being a slightly longer race, we are going to try and cover some of the drivers that maybe on some of the shorter races we don't normally get to give as much screen time to. So we will do our best to kind of go through the full grid after the race has settled down a little bit and look at people's and drivers' progression. So if there's anybody in the chat that wants to have a particular focus on their driver, please feel free to drop in the chat. Likewise, if you're in the chat and you've not subscribed to the ESR YouTube channel, please feel free to like the stream. That always helps the algorithm and gets ESR a little bit better promotion, and also subscribe to the channel as well to catch all of our racing action, both on a Sunday every 2 weeks, which is the European GT Championship, but also our GT3 Championship that runs on a Thursday evening. So yeah, later on, if you've got anybody that you want us to give a little bit of focus to, just give us a look through. So I think Yanis has been sandbagging a little bit, Dara. That's my early theory. Obviously, he'll kill me for saying that, but that's my early theory that in quali, I think Yanis knows that this is a long race. I think he's been sandbagging a bit, and yeah, we'll have to see how it plays out. I'll leave it to you to talk us through the first part of the race.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see if he does drop the sandbags, and if he does, where he indeed does it. I could make some Minecraft joke with reference to sand, but I can't think of one off the top of my head. I've got 90 minutes to do it. I'll get there in the end. But as we come around the final corner, safety car will peel into the pit lane, and we will have 90 minutes of racing on the clock here at Zandvoort. First time this season that we've got an hour and a half's worth of racing to feast our eyes upon, and Jason Baxter has got the best seat in the house. There's going to be some with popcorn further back, though, as they'll look to pick their way through. But as the safety car comes in, it's a wait. It's a watching for everybody behind. When does Jason Baxter decide to launch? It's going to be just about now as the lights go off, and we're racing here at Zandvoort. 90 minutes on the clock, and it's a good start from home hero Gina Terha. He's going around the outside, but he's not braking late enough to really have a good run all the way through Tarzan, and he will have to stay in P number 2. Yannis Hilbert looking to come up the inside now as they run in towards turn number 2. It's a good line to have, but he relinquishes it. He allows Gianni to go through. And is that the first example we're seeing of drivers being cautious? They're not being cautious further back, though. Cars around. That looks like Dean Sheesby's gone around, and he's been overtaken by all of the GT4s now, as William Humphrey got that good launch that he was looking for. Important to get the launch for those front runners, and they've done that. Shame for a couple of drivers, namely Dean Sheesby, who's dropping all the way to the back.
Yeah, very disappointing for Dean. Very disappointing for Dean as we just jump on board with William, and it looks like William has got Marius for company. So the famous fuel saver, he's going to be trying to take it to him tonight and hang on to the back of William. What's interesting here, Dara, is that the front GT4 drivers are actually running at a similar pace to some of the slower GT3 drivers. So that's going to make this very, very tasty as this race plays out, because those GT3 drivers are going to have much more power on the straight, but obviously the GT4 drivers, some of them with a bit let's say a bit higher skill level, you know, that might be unusual for us coming up against some GT3s.
Yeah, we haven't really seen much inter-class battling, have we, for overall position so far this season? Could this be the start of it? We'll wait and see. Petrol Luis de Silva I almost thought that was a German liveried car for a second there, but it wasn't. Of course, the Portuguese driver in P4, he's lost a position to Justin Alof, and the South African going through nicely in the early stages of this race. And I think it's interesting, actually. I was thinking about this as we were going through the grid, actually, that with Joe Sparrow pointing out the fact that, you know, you'd have to save about 10 minutes worth of fuel in 35 minutes. Are we going to see drivers try and push that fuel that little bit more, just, you know, go full out in the early stages and almost just accept that they're going to that two-stop and shorten off those stints just that little bit and make them 30 minutes each, which they could conceivably do. It's just a case of how hard they want to push, but we'll have to keep an eye on that. The guys making the pit stops now aren't going to be looking to get to the end necessarily on one more stop. This isn't their first of two. They'll be repairing a little bit of damage, and I think we saw Linus Petkevicius as part of that. Bobby Moss as well down there. Owen Seward already listed as out of this race. Not good for him. But also, fantastic planning. Oh, as Zelinskas looks to go to the inside on Jaden Scott. And I was mentioning this on the lap that we were looking with Danny, wasn't I? That there's multiple lines you can take through there, and we're seeing that already. Zelinskas getting to the inside. Great move from him. I think Scotland's going to be safe from Adam Baker down in towards the stadium section, but it is important to keep an eye out for that. I was just going to mention, really, that there's a lot of drivers in this race. The perfect numbers, James, to fit them all on the timing tower on the left.
I know, we could have done, well, they almost fit. I mean, the first good bit of good news is that we don't have those two annoying series admins this week, since we worked out what changes iRacing had made to the spectating rules, shall we say. Yeah, the spectating rules have changed, so you have to access the lobby and spectate from a different. So, but yeah, what we have got on tonight is you'll see when a driver enters the pits, you'll see that the timing tower just shrinks up slightly, and it gives us a notification of a driver that's entered the pit lane. So if they stay in the pit lane for up to 60 seconds, they'll stay on screen, and it'll give us the 2 times of their pit standstill time and also their full pit time. So that's going to be a bit of a prompt for me and Dara to kind of see who's jumping into the pits and when. So getting back to some of the action, we've got Jason Baxter that's managed to pull out that 1.7 second lead on Gianni Terhar. So maybe Yanis wasn't sandbagging as much as I suspected he may be, because yeah, Jason is away with it with that kind of 1.6 lead. I would imagine he's kind of on the straights. He's falling out the draft there as well. So I think if Yanis was holding anything back, I don't think he would have let Jason get ahead. Although it is a long race and there is time to maybe recover some of that later. We've got Kalle Leskinen sat just behind Yanis as well. So good start from Kalle, running in P4 for the Flatline Racing Pink team. He's holding his own in P4. And behind him, he's got Ben Bennyworth and Will Soper. So Will Soper on the back of that kind of 5-car train, albeit a slightly stretched out train. And as we look here, we've got Joe Glass looking at the inside of Jaden Scotton. So Joe's gone up one place since he started, so from P10 to P9. I guess Joe was probably, I think they did a 24-hour race as he jumps to the inside of the banked corner, and Jaden takes that Corvette sweeping right round the outside. So, but yeah, I think Joe did a 12-hour race at some point in the last couple of days. So he might have a bit of iRacing fatigue tonight, but be interesting to follow his progress anyway and see how he goes. And another one of the Vulcan Fasteners team, Matthew Jones, running in P13. So Matthew is teamed up with Nick Stubb, who's down in P36. So this is Matthew's first time out. Oh, oh dear. Was that commentator's curse, Nora, as Joe just took a little bit of a... Oh, yeah. We'll move on from that, shall we?
Yeah, I don't think we can quite call it commentator's curse because we weren't on him, were we, at the time? I think maybe he just, he almost felt the presence of Mr. Bostock and thought, ooh, it was almost, something in the bones, and he went wide. But you're right. It's easy actually at that corner to go a little bit wide. Once you get caught onto that curb, the car pushes you that little bit wider, and it's very easy to drift into the runoff, and I think that's what happened there. Dadapa's getting very close to Neil Scooter. Whilst all that was going on there, mind you, Yanis Albert did get through on Gianni Terhar down in towards turn 1 at Tarzan. I think when we left him, he was lining it up very nicely through the final couple of corners, and it was a very textbook move to the inside at turn number 1, and that's why he's in P2 now. So a couple of the sandbags are off. He can go that little bit faster now, but we'll have to wait and see if he can close that gap to Jason Baxter, because Gianni Tejar's keeping him more than honest at the moment, isn't he?
He is. I think we'll keep a note of that. 2.5 seconds, Yanis and Jason. I think that's probably the maximum distance that Yanis would feel uncomfortable before he thinks, actually, I need to do something about this now. But I'm not totally sure that he can do kind of too much about it, because Jason's last lap was a 1:33.1 and Yanis's last lap was a 1:33.7. So pretty much 0.6 difference, which is huge. So unless they're on different fuel loads, of course. So yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on that one for sure. What kind of threw me there was Martin Kenyon's had an incident, and we will cut back and try and see some of these this week. Yeah, what kind of threw me a little bit with the incident with Joe Glass is that we got nothing off the timing tower at the moment. As we look to let's have a look at the grouped sections. Yeah, we've got someone in the chat mentioning that Marius has actually got ahead of William Humphrey. So yeah, sorry we missed that. I'm sure there's going to be many an overtake missed over 90 minutes at some point. So yeah, I don't know whether Williams had a bit of an incident. I'll have a scroll back through while Dara's kind of talking through. I can see we've got Dean Sheesby in the background there. So yeah, I've got nothing at the moment. So that maybe Williams just had a bit of an off track, but he's only 0.3 behind. So really fantastic for Marius there to take the lead, and it looks like Dean is now going to get past these guys. And we've got Tristan Engelstadt, who's back for tonight. He's running in P3 for the Quad Dash Racing team as William looks up the inside of Marius. Oh, this is getting tight. They're going to go too wide, and they've got Dean Sheesby in front. Marius is holding his line. Say, no, you don't. William says, yes, I am. He's coming up the inside. Marius is going to be on the inside for turn 3. William's going to go round the outside, going to carry a bit greater speed, and he's got the job done, Dara. So that's William back in the lead.
Yeah, really opportunistic there. He just allowed, with Dean Sheesby coming through, it just did allow William Humphrey that look up the inside of Marius Hippen, because he was really in a bad position, the Dane, because he couldn't really close off the line for the GT3. He was likely going to be hit if he did so. If he, slowed down a little bit too much, William Humphrey was going to steam him up the inside, so we tried to balance the two, and the balance didn't just quite come off. William Humphrey was very astute to it, though, was very aware, and was able to put himself into a position where he could have that outside line at turn 3. We saw it work early, didn't we, with Joe Glass going to the low line, not working in his battle with Jayden Scotton at the time. But we're seeing it again, that the outside line is working very nicely indeed, and we'll have to see if that is replicated again and again throughout the rest of the race. Joe Glass may have that outside line. Teammate, of course, to William Humphrey, who just did it on the previous lap. Adam Baker's the driver who's going to have to face it. Can Joe make this work all the way around the outside? They're a pretty much dead heat going into the corner, but look at the launch off of the corner that you can get on that outside line. And even Joe Sparrow is going to come through as well. So, disaster for Adam Baker. But for the Glass Tech Racing team, 2 identical moves in the space of 2 laps in 2 different classes.
Yeah, we've got Chris Jones joining us in the chat, saying that Marius, William, Joe and Nick all did the 12-hour. It was last night, and they finished at 4 a.m. this morning. So that might explain why Joe's a bit flagging a little bit. So yeah, fair play to him for jumping on and doing another 90 minutes. I think they actually won. They won their group last night, so congratulations to all of those guys. I saw that Joe Sparrow actually just snuck his way through, so there was a hairline gap, and off Joe Sparrow went, saying I'm coming through as well. So that puts him into P11, Joe Glass P10. That takes him back to where he was before. We got Adam Baker, and then we've got Matthew Jones. So Matthew Jones just running. We were on board with Matthew Jones when Joe Glass decided to have his first incident. So yeah, Matthew Jones currently running in P13. He's up 3 places, so making nice progress as Matt gets back into the race. Meanwhile, we've got Ryan Stringer, who looks to be one of the closest GT4s on track, behind, I think that's Evan Main. I think it is. So yeah, Ryan Stringer running P11, Evan Main P10, Chris Jennings P9, and then Lawrence Didapper, who is making his ESR GT4 debut, running a very, very respectable P8 here for the LS Racing 3 team. Yeah, really good starting performance for Lawrence Didapa.
Yeah, and we'll see if he can keep progressing through the field. He's going to be starting to pressure Niels Kula in the not too distant future, especially with Niels just falling a little ways off the back of that group of cars in front. We are seeing those the gaps in the GT4s open up that little bit more than we're seeing in the GT3s, and I don't think we're a million miles away from some lapping occurring, so that could, you know, further accentuate some of those gaps. Anton Kalo looking to try and come through here. Will get through on the GT4, won't quite get through on Jaden Scotton as they run their way into the stadium section. Very tight down here for P8 overall and in class as well. But we are seeing those closer battles, I think, in the GT3s at this stage of the race. Terha holding that up that group of Leskin and Bennyworth and Soper is a really good example of that. But we are also seeing these other little battles with the likes of Scotton and Kalo involved as well. I don't think there's going to be moving to turn one this time around, and there won't. They'll stay in the same order. Close battle going on though down for P11. Yali Dempster and Martin Kenyon going at it for P11 and 12. That's inviting Malcolm Coates into the fray as well. We'll keep an eye on that one as we work our way through this race, but still very, very early stages, isn't it, James? I mean, only, 13 minutes gone in a 90-minute race. I think drivers, a lot of them, just trying to feel it out still.
Yeah, I think whilst it is early days in that first kind of third of the race, that first half an hour, the one thing that you don't want to do is lose a lot of ground versus your main rivals. So I think whilst people will be relaxed, I think at the same time they'll also be conscious that they need to stay on the train, so to speak. I think Martin Kenyon did have an incident earlier, so I will have a scroll back through and we'll see if we can get some of those incidents ready. Oh, as Martin just hits the wall there, so he's pushing on. Maybe he's got a little bit of damage, but yeah, it's definitely inviting Malcolm, who's just behind him, to actually come and have a go as Malcolm just spins round. I don't know if Martin braked earlier than Malcolm expected, as Malcolm looks to get going again. It's an awkward position for him to be in there, stuck on the inside of turn one. Hopefully the drivers are just slowing down, realising he'll be checking his relative to see when it's safe for him to reverse up. He's just managed to reverse enough, I hope, to just get himself back going again. Yes, he does. So yeah, unfortunate there for Malcolm. Just got to get his head down now. Won't be too much damage on that car, only a little bit of a spin, so he'll get himself up and running again. Glass's managed to pull a little bit of a gap between himself and Joe Sparrow, so that'll give him a bit of breathing space. In the meantime, back to Anton Kalo. That looks like one of the closest battles that we've got on track between Anton and Jaden, so only 2 tenths behind. We said that we'd keep an eye on that gap, Dara, at the front, so it's down to 1.9. So the jury's out. Was Yanis sandbagging? Is he just keeping it in control, or is Jason pushing as much as he can and Yanis pushing? I mean, they've dropped Jani Tahar by 2 seconds, who's got Kalle Leskinen for company. So yeah, going to be interesting to see how this plays out in the next 15-20 minutes as we get into that last hour.
It is, and I think Yanis is going to be starting to close that gap and would be happy just to sit with Jason Baxter and follow him for the next probably hour, upwards of an hour. If push came to shove, we'll see him work his way through some traffic coming around the banking, but it's looking good, pretty good for Yanis Albert for the time being. He is able to close that gap. 34.2 for Jason Baxter last time around. That is in comparison to that 34.2 from Yanis Albert. So there's pretty much a split them at the moment. But Yanis, of course, finding a little bit of traffic in an unfortunate place. So I think he'll be hoping to gain a little bit more this time around. But it is getting to that stage. To that stage of the stint, really, where I think drivers are going to be looking at how many laps they have to go, how far can they get to, and all those variables. And for Yanis Albert to get into the slipstream and to be able to save a little bit of fuel, that would be crucial for him. Jelle Damstra looking to try and get himself into the top 10 here. He's in this little train, including Evan Main, Ryan Stringer, and Chris Jennings, who are all just about fighting for positions inside the top 10. And it does go to show that I think drivers are happy to sit in these little trains. We talked about it at the start of the broadcast, didn't we, James, about whether we'd see these little trains, would we see drivers gap out. I think these little trains are going to be very pertinent throughout the race, and very much, perfectly demonstrated by this little group bubbling around the top 10, or just there or thereabouts in the GT4s.
Yeah, and I think Martin's doing his utmost to jump actually onto the back here, isn't he? If Martin's had an incident in his McLaren, in his DXT McLaren, it's dropped him down. He's only P13, so I suppose because Martin's running in the Pro-Am Teams Championship, Martin's going to be looking for top 10 finishers. They would be good results if you think that out of 30 drivers, in theory, 15 should be in the Pro teams and 15 should be in the Pro-Am teams. So, top 10 results for Martin should be exactly what he's looking for. He's only 3 places out of there. So, considering he's had an incident, I think Martin's doing quite well, and it'll be interesting to keep up with his progress. Somebody else that we've not really seen a lot of so far, that's going to be your first interview after the race, because we've promised him, is Andrew Fellows. He's having a bit of a lonely race in P17 for the Flatline Racing team, Flatline Racing Porsche, as we jump on board with Andrew for a minute. So, Andrew just kind of comes, turns up, does his thing, does his laps, doesn't seem to get involved in any incidents. He's 7 seconds running behind Andy Chell at the moment. So, Andrew, I think Andrew would kind of like to be a bit further up, maybe 3 or 4 places further up, kind of P13, P14. So, we'll have to see how that plays out. It's a shame that Owen Seward didn't manage to run out. I don't think Owen Seward actually started at all. So, hopefully we'll get Owen out with us next time. He was teaming up with Sean Clark. And as we look at Sean Clark, Sean is already out. So, the 2 drivers that are out of DXT, the second team, unfortunately, are both in the same team. So their debut has not gone to plan. So let's jump back on with one of our new drivers, Dean Tyler. So Dean Tyler's currently running in P14, 3.5 seconds behind Matthew Jones, and straight behind Dean we've got Louis Plath and Andy Chell. So unfortunately Andy couldn't, I think I mentioned earlier, Andy couldn't turn out 2 weeks ago, wasn't feeling up to it. What looks to be, he's got himself feeling a bit better, and he's got himself a nice little battle here on track with Louis Plath in front of him.
He does, and let's see if Andy can try and make anything of this and get himself into the top 15, or top 15 here as they work their way up through the dunes that we do find here at Zandvoort. It's a lovely venue to go racing, and so historic as well. Racing has been around here for well over 70 years in many different formats in terms of the circuit. It's been refined time and time again, but some of the real key features have stayed the same. Turn 1 Tarzan has been the same for a long time, and even that main straight has been there for decades now. What has been in front for quite some time is Jason Baxter's GT3, but how long is that going to last? Because Yannis Hilbert's looking to try and go around the outside at turn number 1. Baxter's going to cover that line off once again, but Yannis Hilbert is now here to play. He may have sandbagged in qualifying, may have sandbagged the first 5 minutes, but he's not really going to keep them in the car much longer. I think he's making some of these tunes, quite frankly, as we go lap by lap with the amount of sand that he is dropping from that Minecraft Racing Team car. And he may get an opportunity here. Really poor run from Jason Baxter behind one of those GT4s. They'll run up towards turn number 6. Is there a line for Yannis Hilbert? The answer is no. But he is, pushing Baxter through some of these corners. You feel like it's only a matter of time before there is a move that is going to be on for Yannis. And we've seen it more than a fair few times here in ESR. If he sees the gap, if he sees the opportunity, he's going to go for it. And more often than not, it comes off well. Let's hope that with over an hour to go still left in this race, they can get this one through cleanly.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pit stop time, as in... It doesn't look like it. Yannis looks like he's here to fight. But I mean, if I was Yanis, I'd definitely be sitting behind Jason as long as possible, and then thinking about fuel saving a little bit while staying at the same pace, and then just taking it a little bit longer. But it doesn't look like that is the case. It looks like Yanis is here to bring us a race, which absolutely is fair game. So yeah, it'll be great to see. I think some of that gap gets eaten away, doesn't it, in terms of the concertina effect, is that when the GT3s are coming up to lap GT4 cars, the first driver there potentially does the disturbance and kind of paves the way, so to speak. So I guess Jason has got that task of working his way through the GT4s. It looks like we've got Will Soper in the pits for an early pit stop. So that's with 23 minutes gone. Will is coming into the pits. Oh, as Jason just goes up the inside and Yanis says okay. Oh, and we've got an incident and Jason is off. And Yanis has sportingly decided to let Jason get himself sorted and get back on before he harasses him. So that was him making his way through one of the GT4 cars, and the race is back on. So yeah, Jason was lucky there to keep that going. Fantastic bit of car control on the grass as well. So yeah, fair play to him for that, Dora.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't even know if Yanis actually let him keep the position. I genuinely think that Jason Baxter held the car in a manner that was enough to keep him in the lead just organically. It looked like Yanis was almost just trying to slow down to make sure that he didn't hit Jason Baxter coming across the circuit, but he came back across in such a way that meant that the position that he was in meant he could carry on in the lead. So really, impressive car control from Jason Baxter to keep it in the lead. How long can he stay there, though? They have to go around the outside of the final corner. Not an easy place to be. And the track will open up now as they clear the GT4 traffic. Yanis Lebert has the best run he's had all race long for the race lead. Inside line is his if he can claim it, but he can't quite do so. Jason Baxter braking a little bit later, able to do so on the outside line, carry a little bit more speed into the corner, and he is going to stay in the lead. But you can see from Yanis Lebert's point of view, a face full of Acura. How long is that going to last? The outside line works best. We won't see many moves to the inside at turn 3 today, and it's not going to work out for Yanis Lebert through there this time round. But he is doing everything, throwing everything at Jason Baxter at the moment. Baxter defending very nicely indeed. We're likely to be coming to the end of the opening stint soon. Who blinks first? Who thinks it's a good idea to come into the pit lane earlier? That's going to be a really interesting factor. Can Yanis Lebert get himself into the lead through strategy, not necessarily getting the move done on track?
Yeah, well, this is, for me personally, this is something I never normally see, which is a lap following someone as quick as Jason. So, yeah, I mean, following at close quarters. So he's got the 98 car. I think that's William, isn't it? That's William that they're making their way through. Yes, it is. So Yanis is keeping him very, very, very close quarters as we've got Joe Glass. Joe Glass has had an incident now because that has popped up on our timing tower. So Joe possibly will be falling back a few spaces. Yeah, that looks like an insane lap following this close all the way around a lap of Zandvoort. Meanwhile, we did have an overtake from Anton Kalo, overtook Jaden Scotton, and Jaden got the position back. So I don't know whether that was one of those big banked corners that just they decided that, as it looks like Anton is going to go for a move here up the inside. He's certainly got the run now. He thinks better of it and he sits back in behind Jaden. But Jaden's got the BMW of, I think that must be one of the flat lines. So it might be Pedro Luis da Silva, as Pedro takes the outside line. Jaden takes the outside line. Anton Kalo says, well, there's a bit of a space here for me, as they're almost bump drafted down the straight. No, doesn't manage to get the job done. Thinks better of it. Another GT4 car coming up. That looks like it's going to be Justin Eloff, that had that incident with Jason Baxter as well. So we'll see how these negotiate. I guess half the challenge in this type of race, Dar, is really picking when you're going to make these overtakes and whether or not the GT4 is, shall we say, compliant.
Yeah, I think you're right, really, because it's really tricky to judge exactly where the GT4 is going to be going, particularly at a track like this where there are lots of different lines through lots of different corners. There's going to be GT4s in, parts of a corner where you may not necessarily expect them, and they are going to be looking behind the GT4s, trying to just get out of the way of the battles, and there can very easily be miscommunication. So, would not be surprised to see that become a bit of a factor the further we go in this race. Simon Hunt looking on the back of Lawrence De Dapper, who's dropped down the order just a little bit in the last few laps, down just inside the top 15 now. But of course, will be looking to try and get himself back towards the top 10 over the course of the next hour. I think there's a move actually from Anton Kello back again for the top 7. Jaden Scotland's been overtaken. So I think Anton has just been able to get that one done once again. There he is through that MK Sim Sport car, going along nicely indeed. See if he can continue to get away from Scott. And of course, championship leader Anton Kalo. I don't think he's going to be feeling very used to being down here in P7, but he's going to have to try and run away. Got 7.5 seconds to find Gianni Terha, and then there is a bit of a gaggle of cars towards the top 3. But you don't really want to be stuck down here, and don't want to be stuck behind a GT4 that's blinking over the road. He gets through nicely. Not really ideal to have some connection issues in this kind of race.
Definitely not. Definitely not. I think connection issues are tough at the best of times, but in a multi-class, that just provides a bit more of a challenge. So let's have a quick look how Anton actually passed Jaden, and we'll see if the replay's working for us, Dara. So it does look like the inside of turn 1, Jaden goes slightly wide, Anton takes. I think that Marius was something to do that, as the grandstand quite nicely blocks everything for us. Oh, there's a bit of a touch as Jaden just touches the back of Anton, and that is job done, position made. So Anton is now up into P7. It looks like Gianni Terha has had an incident as well, because Gianni has dropped down to P6 and Gianni has not been in the pits. So Gianni was running P3. I was secretly hoping that Gianni was going to keep that P3, because he certainly had some bad luck and a bit of disappointment. So unfortunate there for Gianni. Again, strangely, nothing has come up on the timing tower to say that he's had a crash. So maybe it's something to do the way that we've got the settings of what constitutes coming up as an incident. But we'll keep an eye out on that. So that obviously promotes Kalle Leskinen, who's now up into P3, and Ben Bennyworth into P4, who's got Arumas Zelinskas for company in P5. So this kind of battle for that last podium position is hotting up quite nicely. We've got Joe Glass in the pits that looks like he's had a stationary pit time of 22.7 seconds. So I think that 20 to 22 seems to be about the standard time. First driver to pit is Will Soper. So Will is the highest position driver in P15 that has already made his first pit stop. So as he comes on the back of his teammate, nice shot there of him passing his teammate with both cars. Oh, as they nearly come together, I don't think the Access Sim Sports Red team would be too happy with that if they came together. But we'll see how Will works his way back up the pack. I do suspect, Dora, that if he was in that early, there may have been some incident related, because it would be unusual to pit within 15 minutes.
Yeah, that it wouldn't have been planned. I don't think many drivers want to be pitting till about now. It's interesting, really, that we are seeing a few drivers go past that, 60 minute to go mark, because if we are going for 2 stops and drivers are trying to equal it out that little bit more, we'd likely see drivers go in at about the hour mark, about then that 30-minute mark. But we are seeing drivers continue on. They're going to be running the fuel load as low as they can. So we're likely going to be seeing some splashes and dashes towards the end of this race, likely in the final 10-15 minutes. I think that kind of range is probably realistic here. Yannis Hilbert, though, keeping close tabs on Jason Baxter, but not really doing much to now force the issue. I think happy to sit where he is for the time being, because saving fuel at this stage of the race will help him on in about 40 minutes time when we get in towards those latter stages of the race. So probably a shoot to stay where he is for the German and let Jason Baxter do the work and push most of the air out of the way. He can just sit there with a little bit less air, gain a little bit of time in terms of speed down the front straight and these back straights as well. just save that little bit of petrol, or not petrol, obviously, not on these cars, a little bit of fuel that will get him to his stops. Bennyworth, though, he ducks into the pit lane. Is that going to be a sign of things to come? We'll have to see. Spin, though, Will Soper getting through. That's Lewis Plath, who's gone around. And in that LS Racing 001 car, he is just going to lose a position or two. Not what he needed. Or disaster very much averted for him. There is Bennyworth, first driver to pit from the front group in GT3.
Yeah, so I think that we must be arriving at that time now. Really unfortunate there for Louis Plath. I think that was Will Soper in a pack of GT4s, and Will probably deciding that he was going to sort of make a move, maybe not realising that one of the cars was a GT3, and I guess the approach speed would have been much higher. So yeah, Ben Bennyworth 26.1, so Ben looks like he could have taken quite a bit of fuel on there. And one thing we've not spoke about, Dara, is tyres, because tactically tyres are going to come into this, because I think for 90 minutes you would want to change the tyres once. So would you save that up for the second stop, or would you get that done at the first stop to make your second stop quicker?
I think I'd do that. I think I'd just run the fuel tank dry in the same way that we see in the 60-minute races, where drivers just run it as long as they possibly can. I see no reason why you shouldn't be doing that in these 90-minute races. Yeah, you may have to make an extra pit stop, but the theory is still the same. You can run longer in the race on lower fuel loads, and therefore should be that little bit faster. So I see no reason to come in earlier than you need to, just for the sake of it. Yeah, extending that stint out as long as you can is probably a good idea, because, again, the worst comes to worst, you keep extending and extending, you may even be able to get a one stop. It's unlikely, I'll give you that. But, I mean, that's not going to be a bad, downside to saving that little bit extra fuel or going as long as you can in the opening stint. Drivers that are pitting now obviously will get nowhere near the end of the race, but if they can get an extra 5-10 minutes, then we may be able to see that being possible. We're not seeing too many drivers come in on this lap. Having said that, we watched someone come in just behind.
Dean Tyler. Dean Tyler's in.
Yeah, exactly. But there's not exactly a rush to the pit lane. We would see, when the fuel tanks are getting dry at about the same amount of time. And also it's worth pointing out that Ben Bennyworth has pitted a little bit earlier than the rest generally over the course of the season so far. So that's not necessarily the litmus paper test that I think we're looking to have in this race. But yeah, I think when we see the likes of Leskinen pit, Leskinen should probably come in about the same point as Jason Baxter if they've done the same amount of fuel saving, if they've done any at all, because they've both been somewhat isolated from cars in front of them throughout this race. Traffic as well. It's going to be helpful with the fuel save if anybody's looking to go that little bit longer.
Yeah, we might find that different manufacturers, different cars will require a different pit time, but Jason is in. So as Jason comes into the pit, we can keep an eye on him and Kalle Leskinen. So it's almost like you do, Dara. You just called it perfectly. So yeah, Jason Baxter's in, Kalle Leskinen. So Jason's up on the jacks, Calle's up on the jacks. So they're going to take tyres this time, and I suspect next pit stop they won't take tyres because they'll just put as little fuel in as they can get away with and then take it to the end of the race. That looks like Jaden Scotton also in, up on the jacks. So yeah, they're using the tyre change time to maximise the amount of fuel that they can get put in and go again as Jason comes out the pits. So I wonder what Yanis is going to do now. Is Yanis going to stay out long, or is he going to respond immediately to try and keep a close race going?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I think for Yanis to really think about now, because he's in a good position to really almost claim his own, how to put it, his own destiny in this race. It feels like a little bit of an extreme way to put it, but the way that he can now run to the end of this stint, whether he comes in now, whether he is able to extend an extra lap, that will then be reflected later on in the race as well. So the early or the later that you pit now, the better it is going to be at the end of the race. So, he's running on a lower fuel load this lap round than Jason Baxter did. Do not rule out the fact that he could come out anyway with putting the same amount of fuel into the car, but he will come now down pit lane, and this pit exit's going to be incredibly interesting. If he couldn't have done this on the strategy, then he's going to be in a fantastic position as we get towards the end of the race, because of course he's gone that one lap longer, which means he's going to have to put that much less fuel into the car over this stop and the next. That's going to be really important for him.
Yeah, he's up on the jacks as well. So he's up on the jacks taking tyres. We've got Anton Kalo behind what looks to be Malcolm Coates. Joe Sparrow just appeared, so that doesn't look great. That might be a tow to the pits as Yanis exit. Where is Jason Baxter going to be? Let's have a look. Jason's coming up the start-finish line now. Yanis is going round turn 1. There we go. So Yanis has managed to somehow, in one lap, put a 3.6 second gap. Now that could be taking less fuel, of course, or it could be thanks to the fuel saving that he's made, which allowed him to take less fuel. He could also have plenty of fuel left, and he's decided to come in and top up, so it doesn't reveal his game plan. But both took tyres, and now Yanis would be your net leader with a 3.2 second lead. So the inherited lead is Aruma Zilinskas. Is Arumas going to come in this lap? I think we are moving towards that 60% fuel cap, Dara. So yes, Arumas is coming in now. I suspect that he's going to take tyres as well. I wonder if anybody would try to maybe take two left tyres at the first stop and 2 right tyres at the second stop to try and speed up however long it takes to put in 60% fuel capacity. As Yanis looks like he's going to take the lead back now as he comes over the start-finish line.
I mean, I think it's an interesting point you make, to be fair, because you probably don't want to have the same tyres for 90 minutes, of course, but at the same time, could you consider changing all 4 tyres now at about that 52-53 minute mark? Because then you could try and get yourself all the way towards the end of the race on that set of tyres. I guess with this being a clockwise circuit, those right-hand side tyres are going to take that a little bit more the left-hand side tyres are going to take a little bit more punishment. You may want to probably change them now because we'll be running on slightly lower fuel loads theoretically towards the end. But again, it's that conversation. You don't want to take too many tyres in your pit stops and lose that much time. The question is, with the amount of time that Yanis gained on Jason Baxter, and was there any change of tyre for Baxter there that may help him in this stint? We'll have to wait and see. But the first pit stops really have given us a bit of a picture as to where we sit in this race. William Humphries just come into the pit lane along with Pedro Luis da Silva. Nick Stubb and Linus Petkovicius continue onwards. They are getting closer and closer to maybe being able to do that one stop. It still looks unlikely, but they are on the fringes of being able to do it. Just a couple more laps and they may just be able to get themselves towards the end of the race. But it is going to be a pit stop for William Humphrey, good enough to get him out inside the top 3. Just shows how good he's been so far in this race, and how long he's been able to pull that strategy out, that he's built that gap back to drivers behind him, and the fact that he's pulled out the fuel tank for that little bit longer, that he can pit for the openings and come out 3rd. We've only been racing just under 40 minutes. Incredible,
Absolutely incredible. Yeah, wasn't it Linus Petkovicius that took us right to the very end in the Red Bull Ring, that he drew out the fuel further than Marius Hibner, which is saying something. But I'm sure Linus was the last driver to pit at the Red Bull Ring, and it's an interesting point that you make, is if he's done kind of, I guess 45 is the crossover mark, isn't it? 45 minutes is the halfway, so he's got 4 minutes left to do. His last lap time was a 1:40, so it probably is. It's probably a little bit more, Dara, isn't it, than 2 laps? It's probably maybe like 2.5, 3 laps. Be interesting to see now whether these guys. So Nick Stubb and Linus Petkovicius are the only 2 drivers not pitted, and there he goes, true to form, Linus Petkovicius is doing another lap. So that's 1 minute 40. So that will take him to 47 minutes. If he could do one more,
I mean,
if he could do one more, it's within. It's definitely a possibility. Obviously, I want it to happen now, just to keep you happy.
yeah, I won't turn up in 2 weeks if he doesn't do it. Let's put it on the line. No, I'm only joking. But it just goes to show that this is going to be a theme that we have to see throughout the rest of the season. If Linus can nearly do it, or if he can actually do it, do drivers really try and push that issue? Because, I mean, there is going to be a trade-off. Even if you don't have that second stop, it's not going to be easy to do, and you really have to fuel save. You really have to lose a lot of time in terms of true race pace trying to make this strategy work. So, if anything, it creates that idea of, if it is maybe possible, there's that added strategy factor of what is actually quicker. Is the fuel save quicker to take off the one extra stop? Or is biting the bullet and taking 2 stops and just pushing that little bit more of your stints worth it? Because realistically, your second stop is going to be very, very short indeed. I mean, we're talking about a 20, 25 second loss in terms of the pit lane time, which isn't a great deal if you're really having to back off and save lap after lap after lap. And some drivers won't be able to do it, quite frankly. It's going to be a really tricky task. We'll see if Petkovicius can go around once more as we dive our way through the final corner. He's been going on these... on this stint for 43 minutes. He goes around again. No, he doesn't. Oh, that was a very late call into the pit lane.
He did it on purpose.
Like he was trying to dummy us up here in the commentary box.
He did it on. He
dummied me. I'll be honest.
He did it on purpose. He could hear us. He could hear us talking about him. So yeah, he's got 47, but then he's got his pit time as well. So the pit time's about 20 seconds. 20. Let me have a look for the GT4s. Oh, actually, the pit time is longer for the GT4s, so it's taking around 33, 35 seconds. And then you've got the pit entry and the pit exit, so it's about a minute in total. So it's not going to be far away. If only we'd have made it 62% fuel capacity, it might have been possible. But, yeah, he's not going to be far away. He's going to be about a minute short. He'd have been running on fumes, I guess, at that late stage. But certainly something for us to keep an eye on as we go through the rest of the race. But meanwhile, let's have a look where we are and have a quick recap of the results. So we've got Yannis Albert currently 11.8 seconds ahead. Where has Jason Baxter disappeared to? Jason Baxter is, as we've just seen an incident there, as I was looking down the screen, it looks like Jason Baxter is going down the timing tower and Jason doesn't appear to be with us. So I do hope that that is not another PC based issue for him, or he's just temporarily blinked out. So fingers crossed that that is not another PC crash for Jason. We will let you know. He's just joined us in the chat, exactly the same as round one. Oh dear. So sympathy, commiserations to Jason there. Was having a fantastic race. Well, I guess that kind of leaves it for Yannis, who's got an 11-second lead to Kalle Leskinen, and Kalle Leskinen in P2 has got a 3.5-second lead over Ben Benniwer. So fantastic run out, Quartermass Motorsport, bravo, Ben Benniwer, currently P3. Don't think he's going to have it all his own way though, because he's got a Rumus Zelinskas right behind him, and he's got a recovering Gianni Terhar, and then we've got Will Soper as well. So I think Will had to pit early because of an incident, I think, but I can't be 100% sure. So knowing the pace of these guys, 44 minutes to go, I could quite easily see this pack compressing all the way through from maybe P2 possibly to P6, Dara.
I think I can agree with you on that one. There's not big gaps, is there? And with us losing Jason Baxter, you know, as unfortunate as that is, it now means that there is now almost a little bit more of an incentive, not necessarily incentive, because there was always that chance, but definitely the clear goal to be able to get yourself at least into the battle for the top two. Leskinen doesn't have that much of an advantage. Bennyworth pitted a little bit earlier as well, so for Zelinskas, Terhar, so but even like Anton Kaler, there's a chance here to get themselves a little bit further up the order. Justin Alof trying to go up the inside of Nick Stubb through. They go into the middle sector, around the outside as they get onto the back straight. It's a bold move to make, and I don't quite think he's able to do it just there. He's going to get the line closed off as well, but back to the outside line it will be for the stadium section. Has he got a good enough run to have any kind of line through there? You want to be on the inside if possible, which is where he doesn't find himself. Stubb can defend very nicely indeed, and Nick will just about keep himself ahead for the time being, but Elof all over the rear end, climbing to try and get through. And we really are now starting to get onto the downhill part of the race. We're through half distance. Drivers will know that. And they are starting to really try and position themselves well for the final pit stops. And then, of course, those final little stints that they have to do as well. Inside line for Alof, probably down towards turn one. Surely he's going to be able to have at least a cent here. Maybe get it done. Not got too much power, though, down the main straight. It's going to mean he's got to stick behind just that little bit longer again. This must be so frustrating for the Axis RDS driver.
Yeah, and it looks like he'd taken loads of curb on the inside to try and get the run. And yeah, I mean, these two guys are fighting fantastically well. The last official that I did around that T3, I think I made a similar move where I thought I'm going to go up the inside, thinking it was like a normal corner. And the banking of the corner just let the car on the outside just totally run off. And it was almost, you know, one of those embarrassing moments where you say, well, I wasn't trying to make a move anyway. But actually, that's not the truth. I was. So, yeah, I think you've just seen exactly that happen there between Justin Elof and Nick Stubb, in that Justin thought, I'll go around the inside, and to no avail. Nick just put the power down, as it looks like we've had a spinner in the background there. Was that Adam Baker, or was it Pete Paeva? It was one of the LS Racing... was it Dean Tyler? It might have been Dean Tyler. Yeah, my timing tower's doing some strange things, but we'll have to try and have a look back through and see if we can see them. So yeah, Nick was making the absolute most of that outside banking, and that's bought him a nice little gap now. So he's got himself a 1.5 second gap over Justin Alof, but he's not given up on Jelle Damstra, so it looks like he's going to have a go. We've got Matthew Jones giving Nick Stubb, trying to give him the run in the GT3, towing the GT4, and Nick does manage to get up the inside of Jelle Damstra. So, yeah, I mean, that's teamwork, multi-class teamwork to perfection there. As Matt says, yeah, I'll just give you a tow, get you past him, as we see another inside move that looks to happen, and then Nick says, no, off I go. So yeah, great racing and great teamwork there from the Vulcan Fastness team. I'm sure their real-life team would be very, very proud of that move.
Yeah, indeed. Great to see that one completed in the end. But one way to go to make sure that one is defended, isn't it? Ryan Stringer maybe trying to get himself into the party as well. It is getting more and more of a party, isn't it, down here? We've got, what, 5 cars involved now? It's getting quite busy down there. We're about to have a party up here towards the front of the GT3s as well, aren't we? With Ben Bennyworth leading the train of Zelinskas and Terhar. Will Soper's not a million miles away either. Terhar, of course, after starting inside the top 2, will be looking to try and get himself back towards the podium spots in his home race. And he's got time to do it, but the strategy hasn't just worked so far for him. I think that'll be a slight concern. It's just going to be a real question for Gianni of how is he able to try and recuperate a little bit of that time and maybe a little bit more of that confidence that he had from qualifying to get himself right up there. Soper having to negotiate his way through on some traffic, which isn't going to help him out at all, and feels that Terhar's disappearing that little bit further and further away up the road for the time being, but he's just about, you can see, in the frame, and he may get quite that much closer when they start fighting. And when I say they start fighting, Terhar's getting through some traffic, and you can see 3 GT3s, a couple of GT4s in here as well. It's going to get very busy very quickly, you'd think.
It is, yeah, it is. I like it when we've got these kind of 3-car battles that have got to work their way through the traffic, but these 3 look locked in place. So yeah, Kalle Leskinen is 4.6 seconds up the road, so the pressure will be off for him. We've got Yanis 13 seconds ahead of him. So yeah, it looks like the big fight that we've got on our hands for the final podium position is going to be between these guys, between Ben Bennyworth, Arumas Zilinskas and Gianni Terhar. I don't know quite who I would put my money on at the moment, because it's difficult to try and work out if any of them have got a shorter pit stop coming up. So looking at some of the timings that we can see on the screen, Ben Bennyworth was stationary for 26.15, Arumas Zilinskas was 26.57, and Gianni Terhar was 26.5. So all three of them were in 4/10 of stationary time in the pit stop. So I can only assume that they've all taken on exactly the same amount of fuel, meaning that they all use the same amount in that first stint. So yeah, this looks like in the next 38 minutes, this is going to be a battle to work out kind of which one of them could maybe make that second pit stop quicker and maybe jump the others. Gianni looks like he's just dropped off the back a little bit. Is that a fuel saving kind of drop off, or is that a pace kind of drop off?
Not too sure at the moment. Difficult to tell, isn't it? The pace doesn't look horrendous, but at the same time, maybe it is a bit of a drop off that we would be seeing by virtue of some strategy. But again, we are still in that phase of the race where we're still kind of guessing, aren't we? Exactly which way this is going to go, particularly towards the final stints of the race. And I think the drivers in this train are part of that. They know that. I think they're going to be looking around them, trying to double guess what the others are doing as well. So that's not going to be helpful necessarily to them. But Gianni's doing his best. We'll get through. It looks like on William Humphrey. That is on the outside line up towards turn number 2. Humphrey himself has that 11-second lead now, quietly building that up to Tristan Engelstadt. Hibmer, who did lead the race, didn't he, momentarily in the early stages, has fallen back a little bit, and Tristan Engelstadt really has taken the mantle upon himself, upon himself to really try and close that gap to William Humphrey. Hibmer's not able to do it for the time being, but again, William Humphrey just looks like he cannot be broken, really. He has just had such incredible pace for so long now, and it must be somewhat demoralising, mustn't it, to be a fellow GT4 driver when you know that William Humphrey has just been that consistent for so long.
Well, it's something that we've become used to, Dara, isn't it, really? I mean, William seems to just have this absolute natural flair and connection with the GT4 that he just seems to outshine most drivers. I remember in the first series of our GT4 championship, we saw a fantastic battle between William Humphrey and Justin Rame, the Grid and Go esports driver, and that was absolutely fantastic to see. But I think probably Justin was maybe the only driver that I've seen to be able to really take it to William in the GT4s. So yeah, in this series, he's definitely having it his own way, currently with a 12-second lead, and fair play to him. Fair play to him. He's having a great drive. We all know what he's capable of, and his teammate Joe Glass, he's currently running in P9, so, you know, probably not the result that Joe was hoping for at the moment. He's had a couple of incidents. I guess the other factor is that one of their rival teams is the Minecraft racing team, and we've got Bobby Moss, who's currently running. We've not seen much of Bobby this race, but Bobby's currently running in P17. It does look like Bobby has pitted twice, so I think that probably he's had an incident, and one of those pit stops was for a fast repair. So yeah, Bobby will be a bit disappointed with that, as I think we've just seen Louis Plath just have an incident. It was Louis Plath trying to make the overtake in that twisty section. So yeah, in terms of the teams championship, Yanis is going to be scoring well, William's going to be scoring well, and then almost like, even though it's out of class, the battle is going to be between Bobby Moss and Joe Glass. So yeah, a bit disappointed for him. I just want to come back to Marius a moment. So I did receive a message from Marius this week, and Marius is running a special tribute livery that you can see here. Very, very sad to say that Marius unfortunately lost his grandfather this week, and you can see that lovely tribute that he's put on the car to his granddad. So a big shout out to Marius and the Hibmer family. Really sorry to hear that, and I think it's lovely that Marius can do that and put that livery on. And I think translated, that means that his grandfather is on his mind, as I translated it earlier. So I hope that Marius is driving with that in mind, and I'm sure he'd be very, very proud of that P3 result. So yeah, lovely touch there from Marius. Fantastic racing guy, and an absolute pleasure to have in the league. So hopefully he can bring that podium home, and we might manage to catch a little word with him a bit later on.
Yeah, and it's really nice to see, isn't it, when drivers are able to put that kind of tribute onto their car and really succeed with it on the car as well. So really, full credit to Marius, and all of our wishes, of course, sent to him and the rest of his family. But great to see him being able to put that onto the car. And that's kind of what's fantastic about sim racing, isn't it? We can add these little tributes. Drivers really can make a personal, or put a personal aspect to each of the liveries. Even week after week, which is fantastic to see. That drivers being able to do. He is chasing down Tristan Engelstadt here, which is going to be an interesting fight, I think, towards the end of the race for P2. We'll see if he can get there as we get towards the final half an hour. But I am still really interested in this Bennyworth-Zelinskas-Terhaar battle, because Bennyworth, of course, dropping down outside of the top 3 now. Is that going to hurt him? Is he going to be able to get back through? Making a little mistake there as he ran through the penultimate corner. But it's going to be interesting, I think, to see whether Zelinskas can really make this work. And there's the move he made, wide for Bennyworth on the exit of turn 3. That's just going to open the door. Bennyworth didn't really want to fight that one too hard up the top of the hill.
No, I was just curious how that unfolded. But yeah, Arumas Zelinskas has got through. I think we've seen Arumas battling in quite a few races, but so far, I think he would agree that maybe the start of the season has not delivered the results that he was hoping for since returning to ESR. Arumas did run with us in one of our first championships when we first started as a league. Absolutely lightning pace. We know Arumas, almost 4K iRacing driver. So yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed, some of the bad luck's behind him, and he can maybe use this result, if he can bring this one home, use this result to maybe spring him up into the championship contention and take it to the likes of Yannis Albert, Jason Baxter, Anton Kalo normally. But yeah, before we get to that, he's still got to fend off Ben Bennyworth. So, and I still think Gianni Terhaar's got a role to play in this as this unfolds, because I know that Gianni's been doing a lot of practicing with Yannis, puts the time in, commits to making sure he's ready and prepared for the race. So yeah, fingers crossed he can get back in on the action as well. I just wonder if Gianni's got a little bit of damage on that front right that maybe is hindering him slightly. I'm not sure, but he's certainly managing to keep it up with Ben. They've dropped 1.3 seconds behind Arumas at the moment. The other battle that we've got going on is Andy Chell. Andy Chell is just he's 8/10 now. 8/10 behind Dean Tyler. So Andy up to P13 in the GT3 class. So really good result for Andy. Is he going to be able to squeeze himself, another place, another couple of places? Don't know. Andrew Fellows is up to P14, and we've got Joe Sparrow out, so we've missed that one. We don't know exactly what happened with Joe Sparrow. I didn't get anything come up on the timing software, so whether that was an incident or whether that was another summer hardware related issue, I'm not 100% sure. As I scroll back, yeah, I can see Joe enter the pits, but no sign of a crash with damage. So yeah, mystery. So we've got 3 of the GT3s out, and I think 3 of the GT4s as well. Will Soper looks like he's dropped back a little bit, or is that Will's second pit stop? It is. So Will has done his second pit stop now. 26 seconds in the pits. So I can only presume that this is Will going to the end.
Yeah, I could back that. I can't imagine he's going to pit again for any reason in this race. So I think you're probably right. Will Soper is going to be going to the end from here, and we've only got half an hour to go. So under that, so just a third of that of the race left to run, and if you're looking at us going on 3 stints, and that's going to be about right. Terha now doing a little bit of blinking. His connection to his own nation's track isn't ideal, isn't perfect, but of course, I guess the servers aren't going to be at Zandvoort, obviously, that are going to be helping him connect. But it's hopefully for his sake, he's going to be able to stay nice and close through these next few laps, because this battle with Bennyworth is a really interesting one that I really hope we get to follow for a little bit longer. Malcolm Coates is involved in this as well, but he's in the pit lane for what should be his final stop of the race. I think we are going to see pit stops from anywhere from now until about 10 minutes to go. Quite a wide pit window, about 18 minutes or so, for us to kind of keep an eye on it, because we saw some drivers run it right close to that half distance point, and then and nearly get themselves to a position where they could just do it in 2 stints. So really interesting to see. However, Malcolm Coates is coming just that little bit earlier. The longer you go, of course, the less fuel you have to put in the car, therefore the less time we spend on pit lane for the final stint, James.
Yeah, he will have. Malcolm will have topped up to the end for definite, as we just keep our eye on who the drivers are that's coming in. I was just, while you were talking there, I was just having a look at Linus Petkavicius. So he's running in P14 currently. So I don't think even if he takes it to the end, looking at Malcolm Coates' pit time, he was only on the blocks for 16. So 40 seconds. I don't think the one stop is going to bring Linus Petkavicius up to where maybe he was hoping for. So we can see how that plays out later. But I think at best, if he did manage it, he's probably looking somewhere around P7, P8, between kind of Chris Jennings and Nick Stubb. So doesn't look like that's going to play out exactly as he'd hoped, even if he can manage to do it, which I'm not totally convinced that he can. But if he can, fair play to him. This is the closest battle that we've got on track for the GT3 class. So Gianni Terha again, just sitting that 1 second behind Ben Bennyworth. I suspect there's a little bit of damage on that front right. It looks a little bit odd as Ben is making his way through the traffic. And Gianni says, yeah, thank you very much. I'm going to follow him through, as we've got Dean Tyler into the pits making his final pit stop of the race, as it looks like that's Nick Stubb going up high to let Gianni Terha through. Meanwhile, somebody that we've not mentioned for a while, Joe Glass. So Joe recovering from his bit of an incident. He's running in P8, which I'm just looking at the drivers behind him. He does have Will Soper behind him, and Will has pitted, and Will is 17 seconds behind. So when Joe does his pit stop, which looks like it might be now actually, so right on cue, Joe comes in. We'll stay with Joe for a moment as Gianni Terha has closed up right on the back of Ben Bennyworth, 3/10. But let's see, Joe, no jacks, fast repair. So Joe was carrying a bit of damage there. Only one fast repair per race for these guys. So Joe didn't use it earlier, as Will overtakes him. Matthew Jones in the sister team overtakes him. Let's have a look how long Joe is going to be staying in for. So 23 seconds. So that's definitely going to take him to the end. No tyres, and used his fast repair, and he's in P11. So yeah, be good to see where Joe can work his way through to. Will Soper, meanwhile, he's up to 8th, Dara.
Yeah, he's doing really well, Will Soper. Having pit that a little bit earlier, is that going to help him out? At this stage, we're going to have to wait and see. I think it's interesting as well that he has got that big gap out in front. I don't know how many more positions he's going to be able to gain on the strategy, but we will have to wait and see on that one. There is definitely a chance for him, no doubt about that. For Joe Glass, of course, yes, he had that little moment, but I think it comes back to conversation, and I had this conversation, I can't remember what the broadcast was, but it was about fast repairs. Actually, is somebody off there? I think just out of shot, I'm not too sure. Somebody could have been off with a bit of dust, we'll come back to that thought. But when do you use your fast repairs? And I know, James, that you've driven far more than I have in the past. In a longer race like this, if you've been given a fast repair, what kind of what kind of constitutes, what requires a use of a fast repair? How early are you willing to use them as well? Like, if you have a bit of a graze with the barrier in the first 10 minutes and you've got a little bit of damage on the car, is that worth using your fast repair in the first 10 minutes? Or would you, rather wait and, let it go on that little bit longer? And if you have to come in later on to fix that damage, you would. Basically, I think my question is, how much damage would you need to have to use your one and only fast repair in a race like this?
That's a good question, a really good question. And I can only reflect on, as Marty Kenyon looks up the inside of Yellow Damstra, they're fighting for P12. I can only reflect on a little bit of the endurance racing that I've done within the team. So myself and Robin Aston and Robin Noel Brown did a 6 hour at Fuji, and twice Robin Aston passed me a damaged car, and twice I was a lot slower than what I'd been practicing at with a kind of fully working car. But in that particular example, you had to have the repair time in the pits. So it was always a discussion about whether you wait and do the repair time or you just take the car as it was. I think since then, and realising kind of driving with a damaged car sometimes can lead to you having a spin, I would always kind of err on the side of caution and use the fast repair when I felt the car wasn't predictable, shall we say. So as soon as the car feels unpredictable, for me, the fast repair is absolutely mandatory. I think one of the challenges that some of these drivers face is remembering to tick the fast repair box, as Martin looks to go around the inside of Yellow Damstra, and unfortunately that didn't end too well, and didn't end even at all, as dear oh dear, yeah, well, probably the best, the less said about that the better. I'm pretty sure that Yellow would have thought that Martin was letting him return the place there. So yeah, that one will probably pop up in the steward's room, as Tristan Engelstadt's in the pits from P3. So Tristan is one of the first, what looks to be one of the first GT4s to make his second pit stop. So that's going to be him to the end of the race. And that was a very short pit stop from Tristan, 16 seconds. So not needing to take on loads of fuel.
Yeah, I was going to say, and they're only going to get shorter from here, aren't they? So, I mean, we're going to be seeing pit stops that are almost negligible by the end of this race. Still a lot of drivers yet to come in with 20 minutes to go. I mean, this is the kind of point in the race for a 60-minute race where we'd expect drivers to make their one and only pit stop, isn't it? Maybe just a little bit earlier than this. So, no surprise really that we're seeing these shorter pit stops. It's just going to be a case of how short do they become by the time we get in towards the final closing stages of this race, and with drivers coming into the pit lane. Benny West in the pit lane as well, but that feels like a bit of a longer stop for him. We'll track his progress as he comes out of the pit lane shortly, you'd imagine. His was a 21-second pit stop.
Look at the timing he's chose. Gianni Tahar didn't pit. Ben Bennyworth has seen this traffic jam in front of him and thought,
exactly.
I'm off.
Exactly.
And look at this. I
and
mean, Gianni's totally blocked.
It's a huge consideration to make. I mean, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's at least 10, at least a quarter of the field are in this one tiny little portion of the racetrack by a corner or two down this little straight. Having to get off the throttle in towards the stadium section. This isn't what he needs at all. He needs a shorter pit stop really to try and rectify the amount of lost time he's going to have. But he's losing second after second after second. This is awful for the home hero. He's losing time to Zelinskas as well. So very smart, I think, for Bennyworth to come into the pit lane then. Albert and Leskinen are coming now as well. Zelinskas may go out to take the lead. This is now the time, though. I think we're going to see the final stops. A crucial little phase of the race now.
And he stays out again. So Gianni's looking to make the most of this as he looks to go past the 115 car. I think that's Louis Plath. So he's now through as Anton Kalo comes in the pits as well. So we've got Yannis Albert, who's been into the pits and is back out. So Yannis has put himself into a little bit of traffic, but with the lead he had, I don't think Yannis is going to be too concerned about this at all. I think Ben Bennyworth, let's have a look where Ben has come out on track. So Ben looks like he's come out in totally clean space. Where has he got any GT4s just coming out of the pits here? He's got Anton Kalo coming out. So where has that come from? Anton Kalo's popped up to 5th place out of nowhere. So it must be the fuel saving that Anton was doing in those first 2 stints, and he's popped up nicely into P5, and we didn't have him down as being in that battle with Zelinskas, Terhar and Kalo. And then we've got Kalle Leskinen also still, and Kalle's also been out as we've got the 62 car there having a spin, which looks, I don't know who the 62 car is off the top of my head. It was one of the GT4s. But Kalle Leskinen he's been in, that's right, he's been in for the pits. He is now coming through. We've got Arumas Zelinskas in. It's all right, it's just me getting confused, Dara. So yeah, Jani Terhar hasn't been in. Zelinskas is in the pits now. Leskinen has been in. So I think Kalle Leskinen is going to jump back past. I'm pretty sure he is. There he goes as he's side by side with Mr. Sheesby up the straight. Takes the inside. Dean's not going to fight that. And as you can see, Arumas is just coming out of the pits now. So he's done a good job to make that time back. I think the gap was quite a little bit bigger than that before. Meanwhile, Ben Bennyworth, he must have been so surprised to see Anton Kalo coming out the pit and say, where the hell have you come from, sunshine? As he looks to go up the inside. No, round the outside. Anton goes around the outside. Yeah, this is going to be cracking till the end. And then we've still got to work out, where does Jani fit in? Where's he going to come into play?
Yeah, I know. He's a bit of the unknown at the moment, isn't he? I mean, and the longer he goes, the shorter the pit stop is going to be for him. With 17 minutes of this race to go, we really are ticking away now, aren't we? You know, about a sixth of the race is all that is left, and he's looking to the outside line at the penultimate corner. Not sure how wise that is, but he will get a good run at the up and under. We'll see him down in towards turn 1 and, see him well clear of that GT4. Does he come in this time around, though? He does indeed. So this is going to be interesting. Where does Gianni Terhar come out in relation to the likes of Zelinskas, Kalo, Bennyworth, even Sobeer? This could be really interesting and really important for both of their races, or all of their races, I should say, with only 16 minutes left to go. If you're a little bit too far back now, you've not got too much time to recuperate and regain some of that time. So Gianni's going to hope that this pit stop is negligible, but he's got to get it done quick because Bennyworth is already onto the power around the final corner.
Not only Bennyworth, he's got Anton Kalo as well. In front of him, Anton is through. Bennyworth's going to be through. Where is Gianni? He's coming round the corner now. Is Gianni going to jump these guys? He has jumped them. So Gianni's pit stop strategy is an absolute masterstroke. So they must have been on 2 totally different strategies. Because, Ben Bennyworth is now back to P6 and Gianni Terhar is running P4. He's quite a bit behind Arumas Zelinskas, so I don't think he's going to be able to challenge for that, but he's kind of way ahead of these 2 guys. Ben Bennyworth has swapped fighting with Gianni Terhar, and instead he's got the Anton Kalo mobile, the MK Sim Sport mobile instead. So they probably know exactly what's going on, Dara. It's just us that's confused up in the commentary box.
Yeah, they probably know exactly where they are, who they're racing. That's going to be the key factor here, all the way to the end of this race. Bear's not racing anybody, though. He's just having a lovely time out in front. He's not had anybody to challenge him since we unfortunately lost Jason Baxter due to technological disadvantages. But he's been cruising out in front, as has William Humphrey. Those 2 have kind of been away from the rest. The battle's behind, it's where it's at, and I was just going to mention this one between Elof and Nick Stubber. As we get a very, very congested part of the racetrack. Ryan Stringer's down here as well. Look at this, 5 cars all trying to fight over the same piece of tarmac here. There's the number 31's trying to get to the inside line, not going to work out there. But Justin Elof losing a little bit of ground to Nick Stubb there. Very, very busy at this part of the racetrack. It's kind of what we expected to see because it's a shorter circuit here at Zandvoort, and with a lot of multi-class racing, with the cars gapping out somewhat, it was inevitable that we'd see this kind of battling and these kinds of groups sticking together. But great to see with such little time left in this race.
Yeah, and Nick Stubbs staying out again. Meanwhile, Linus Petkovic is only up to P13 after all these pits. So I think if he is doing some kind of fuel-saving strategy, then that's not really playing out for him, and probably a lesson for some of these other drivers. So we should see Nick Stubb, when Nick Stubb eventually does come in, we should see him back on track with, I think it's going to be with Justin Aloff and Ryan Stringer. So we've got a nice little battle there, and I've just noticed that we've got Aruma Zilinskas, who has closed within a second of Kalle Leskinen. So this last 13 minutes, Dara, is going to be probably more hectic in terms of trying to track these little battles once all the pit stops are out of the way, to work out kind of who's going to be battling who and where those tight gaps are.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see one of them down here around the Ben Bennyworth Anton Kalo region all the way to the end of this race. You know, less than 10 laps to go here as we see the final couple of drivers come into the pits lane. This time it's Marius Himmer, the Dane, who did lead the race at one point, looking to try and get to the end. Will easily get to the end from here. 13 minutes to go, but a very short pit stop, 16 seconds for him, because we saw about 10 minutes ago though. So that's really interesting to point out for Marius Himmer, but he comes out ahead of Chris Jennings, who's also into the pit lane, and a long way ahead of Nick Stubbs. So he'll be looking to consolidate his place on the podium by the end of today. Or sorry, not on the podium, he's in P4, isn't he? Consolidate his place at least in the top 4, near a podium, maybe try and push for that towards the end of the race. That's going to be a difficult challenge to overcome in the closing stages here. Especially with William Humphrey not really in the conversation for this, as he just, cruises and leads the race. He has come into the pit lane for his final stop, but I think he's going to go out in the lead anyway here, James.
Yeah, well, Tristan's pitted. We've got Pedro Luis da Silva, who hasn't yet pitted. So we've not seen much of Pedro this race, have we? Currently running P2, going quietly about his business. Pedro did send me an interesting video of his young baby listening to the stream, and he did tell me that his baby son fell to sleep within about a minute of our dulcet tones. So apparently we're quite good at sending people to sleep, Dara. But yeah, he's had a really quiet race on the stream anyway. But running P2, we'll just stay on board with him to see where he comes out. I think he's going to come out kind of in front of that sort of Nick Stubb, Nils Kula battle, as it's a 15.2 second pit stop. So where's Nick Stubb going to be? Yeah, Nick Stubb's only just coming out onto the straight now, and Nick hasn't pitted. So yeah, it's Nils Kula who is the next driver behind him who has pitted, so way back. So Pedro looks like he has secured the P4 in terms of, so you've got William Humphrey, Tristan Engelstadt, Marius Hibner closing out the podium, and a good solid P4 for Pedro Luis da Silva. So yeah, really pleased for him. Good race for Pedro, and really glad that we managed to remember him to cover him on the stream.
Yeah, maybe we should start a podcast, James, just to help people go to sleep. We could monetize that. That'd be great. No, but great to see that he's doing well in this race and looking for yet another top 4 by the end of the day. Ben Bennyworth, it's still looking for that top 5. Anton Kalo, of course, again, quietly going about his business, would love the points. Of course, championship leader by quite some distance, but points is going to be, really helpful just to keep himself at arm's length from everybody else in the championship here. He doesn't really want to let anybody in or give anybody much of a chance as we get further and further throughout this season. But he's, letting Enes Albert into the conversation, letting his countryman Kalle Leskinen into the conversation as well. It's not going to be comforting him. That is without a doubt. Bennyworth looking to try and get to the top 5. That's not Anton Kalo he's overtaking, but he may have a go soon enough. Bennyworth will stay in P6, but will he stay there? We'll have to wait and we'll have to see. But traffic is still a really key factor in this race. And with 10 minutes left to go, we are seeing that traffic come into play with a lot of these GT3 battles, as GT4s that have generally spread out, with the exception of this battle and one other with Justin Aloff and Evan Main, being a little bit calmer than we've seen the GT3s. But There aren't a million battles going on, but they're close enough that they could be really springing into life by the end here.
Yeah, I think we're going to see, as looking down the timing screen, we've got all of the GT3s that have pitted. Every GT3 has pitted, and then the first GT4 not to have pitted is Nick Stubb, and the next one is the man himself, Linus Petkovicius, who hasn't pitted. So again, same two kind of fuel-saving drivers. So this looks like it's going to be where it's at for the last 8 minutes of the race, as Martin Kenyon is having an absolute ding-dong to get into that top 10 with Ryan Stringer. So yeah, Martin's looking to go up the inside, but again, same thing as we saw earlier. Ryan just takes that outside line, gets the power down a lot quicker, and Martin's going to have to let that GT3 car through and then try to get on the back of Ryan. He's lost a little bit of time there, Martin has. So he'll have to try and get back on the back of Ryan. Meanwhile, we've got the other closest battle we've got in the GT3s is Aruma Salinskas. So he's within the second of Kalle Leskinen. So let's have a look what it looks like from on board with Aruma. So 0.8, that can be as easily squashed with just one kind of inopportune closing onto the back of a GT4 car. Equally, that works both ways, because it could be Kalle Leskinen that loses that time, or it could be Aruma Salinskas. So this is going to be for P2 in the race. This is exactly what I'm talking about, is that Arumas is not close enough to get past that BMW, the 133 BMW, and he's lost a little bit of time there, and Kalle Leskinen gets the acceleration done, although that has stayed around the 0.8, so that didn't work out too bad considering what it could have been.
Didn't and for Zalinskas here, he really is in striking range of Kalle Leskinen, and you're right about the traffic working both ways. Leskinen's really going to be hoping, and you can see him flashing the lights, that he can get through this traffic a little bit easier, but he's not going to have it his own way. That is going to be Justin Ehrloff just trying to get his way through, and he's not going to leave too much room for the GT3 coming through, but it's now going to be on Aruma Zalinskas to try and find his way through. He's going to shovel his way past in turn number 2. Really aggressive driving, but effective, and getting himself into the into position to try and pressure Leskinen once again. He's going to have to try and find a way through very shortly indeed. Otherwise, it's going to become increasingly difficult. There's only 6 minutes on the clock now. And with Yannis Albert some half a minute up the road, it's going to be difficult to do the maths, but we're going to have, I think, 4 laps after this one for Yannis Albert. We'll try and work out the maths when it happens. Car off the road, though. That's a GT4 going around. And it's getting a little bit messy in the final stages. Not what you want at all, especially if you're fighting this hard.
Yeah, I was trying to work out who that was. I think that must have been... it must have been one of the Quartermass GT4s, because at first glance I did wonder if it was Ben Bennyworth, but Ben's kept this gap consistent, still within a second on Anton Kalo. So yeah, it must have been one of the GT4s. So sorry that we missed that. Meanwhile, Andrew Fellows looks like he's got a little bit of a potential race battle on his hands as he comes towards the end. So Andrew's worked his way up to P14. He's looking at Dean Tyler in P13. And meanwhile, Andy Chell is all the way up to P11. So Andy's had a really consistent run. So P11, just sitting one outside that top 10. But who knows, if he continues as he is, anything can happen with those 10 cars in front of him, especially these two guys. Yeah, these are really going hammer and tong for that last P2 place.
Yeah, this is going to keep running and running all the way to the end of the race here. There's not going to be much of a quarter left between them. Zalinskas can smell that top 2. I'm sure he's going to be really trying to close up to in the championship particularly here, but Leskinen is in a fantastic place to get himself some crucial championship points. Yannis Albert, a driver who's a little bit newer in terms of getting himself in the Drivers' Championship, got as many points on the board, he is going to be a real factor the longer and longer we run in this championship, and he's going to be picking up some big points. But for the time being, at least, if Leskinen can get his hands on a huge chunk for P2, then he's going to be in a fantastic position to mount his own championship challenge, and he will be defending hard from Zelinskas. There's no doubt about that. As we get in towards the final 3 laps of this race, all bears a distant memory. He's miles away, but for Leskinen and Zelinskas, it's all about between them two, and Terhaar's probably a little bit too far back to get involved, even if they do start battling quite hard.
Yeah, I wonder, it'd be interesting to ask some of these drivers that pop in for an interview. I wonder if they prefer the 60-minute over the 90. You know, I just wonder whether, you know, in that sort of sprint race mentality, an hour with one pit stop is a really nice length. Not too long, but, you know, not too short. Whereas I just wonder, for a sprint kind of race, I wonder if 90 minutes is, you know, just kind of on a Sunday evening, some of these guys are just kind of zoned out a little bit. We'll have to ask them and see. But yeah, Yannis Olber, it's real shame that Jason got disconnected, because I think that was shaping up to be a good little battle. I think they were on different strategies. Although I did say at the beginning, I thought Yannis was probably had got a little bit in reserve. So fair play to him. The other driver that we've not really mentioned much of, which is the class leader, and of no surprise whatsoever, is the Glasstec Racing Porsche of William Humphrey. So William's just got 2 minutes to go. He's got a 19-second lead from Tristan Engelstad, and Tristan Engelstad is no slow coach when it comes to driving these GT4s. So that just tells you how good and how rapid William is. And then Marius Ibmer. So Marius is 5.8 seconds behind Tristan. So he's looking to bring home that podium. He's got a 9-second gap to Pedro Luis da Silva. And Nils Kohler, pleased to say, Nils has come back up to P5. So that's a little bit more with what I was expecting from Nils this season, and I'm sure that he would agree that this is exactly what he's looking for. So yeah, big shout out to Nils, fantastic result. Stephen Donnelly in P6. Stephen won't be very happy about his teammate not finishing the race, because obviously Joe and Stephen were taking it to Matt Hoyland and Martin Kenyon, and whilst Matt Hoyland isn't racing tonight, it was an opportunity lost in terms of gaining on them in the championship. But 1 minute 27 to go, and it looks like the closest battle we've got is the two for P2 and P5.
It is, and as we get in towards the final stages of this race, Yannis Olber about to start the final lap. This is really crucial for the likes of Ben Benioff to try and find a way through on Anton Kalo. He can see the opportunity. It's a better chance for him than it is Zelinskas around the final lap and a half or so for these guys. Can he get a good launch off of the corner? Not as good as Anton, and also with the traffic in the way, it's going to be almost impossible to find a good line through here. As they run their way down in towards the stadium section, they're kind of sandwiched between these GT4s, not really where you want to be. Launch off the corner, crucial. Benioff is definitely going to have a chance in the final lap here, James.
He is, and that's Louis Plath, a lapped car in the GT3. So these guys have not got the massive power advantage that they're used to with the GT4s. I wonder if that's caught a couple of guys out today, with this being the first of our longer sessions, as Louis moves over. Very, very courteously done. Well done from Louis, and lets these two fight it out for the last lap. I'm pretty sure that we were on the last lap, Dara.
Yeah, we are. We are indeed. As Yannis Olber's about to come up towards the final couple of corners.
Okay. So
he's been pretty dominant, hasn't he?
We will jump back to Ben, and we'll just try and jump back on Yannis as he crosses the line, just in case we don't miss anything.
Yeah, we'll see. Benioff is just about going to try and find a line through turn 6. He's not going to be able to do that at all. He's getting very close, but not quite close enough. to make that move. And as they go round, I think Yanis is just about to cross the line. Here he comes. He's been dominant. He's not looked back, particularly since Jason Baxter's unfortunate disconnect. He wins here at Zandvoort, his second win in a row, and he's right into championship contention after only competing in 2 races of the 4 we've had so far this season. Kalle Leskinen's trying to defend from Ori Masilinskas, who's been his closest competitor for the last half of an hour, but Zilinskas hasn't quite found a way through. He's got one more chance on the exit of the final corner, but he's going to have a very tight line. GT4 traffic playing its part right to the end of the race, and Leskinen is going to have to defend up to the line. Zilinskas has a bit of a run. He has the slipstream. Doesn't he have enough space to try and get P2 here? It's going to be nearly a dead heat as they cross the line, but Leskinen's just about going to hold on for P2. He'll be delighted with that. And as they come through, it's going to be a case of Jenny Terhar coming home for P4. Ben Bennyworth doesn't look like he's got past Anton Kalo, but a battle it's been fantastic for them in the closing stages. But William Humphrey, James, he's just been so dominant yet again. No one can touch him, it seems.
Absolutely incredible driving. Yeah, but we're incredible driving, but we're not surprised because he just does it same week in, week out. Amazing GT4 driver, absolute pleasure to watch. So yeah, as William comes round now to take the checkered flag to win the GT4 class, congratulations to him. And we've got Tristan Engelstadt. He's going to come and take the P2. P2 is secured because Marius was just closing behind Yanis over the line. So Tristan has just blinked out. So yeah, that's unfortunate, but a great P2 for Tristan. So Gianni and Tristan will be very, very pleased with their scoring. Linus Petkovicius, for anybody who wants to know, he did have to take a pit stop. So he did do 2 pit stops in the end. So that one stop didn't actually run out. So I think that went quite quick, Dora, to be honest, don't you?
It felt like it wasn't quite 90 minutes in the end, which is always a good sign, isn't it, of a race? And I think with everybody about to cross the line, I think we're just waiting on Daniel Poole to finish his race. It's been a fantastic first 90-minute race of the season. There's no doubt about that. And yeah, clearly, I think a few thoughts that drivers are going to be able to take away from this and build upon as we get in towards the next 90-minute race in a month's time. 4 weeks it'll be before we are on this extended format once again. But clearly, some good tips and pointers the drivers will have been able to pick up tonight, and yeah, really, really key for them, I think, to keep it running all the way to the end. As Daniel Poole limps it home, is he not? Surely he's crossed the line by now. He's only coming up towards turn 6.
I'm not sure he is. I'm still waiting on the checkered flag. Let's shall we see if we can bring some results up, shall we? And then that will tell us or not. I was also just intrigued about the livery and the damage. So yeah, I've still not got a checkered flag against him on the timing tower. So
yeah, exactly.
we shall have to see. We shall have to see, unless it just fell that he was in the pits or something unusual. I'm not sure. But after the night that we've had, I mean, there's one thing about the 90-minute race. It's definitely a more kind of chilled, relaxed. It's not quite as intense as and trying to capture absolutely everything in a shorter space. So yeah, I've quite enjoyed it, Dora. I think it's been very, very good for our first one.
It has, there's no doubt about that. Poole will come around the final couple of corners, then we should be able to get some results up from the race. It'll be good to get a word from a couple of the drivers. I think it'd probably be good, James, if we just you know, we'll give a couple of questions to quite a few drivers, maybe not keep them in for too long, but that means we'll get to speak to more drivers for a little bit longer. That might be quite nice, because we have got a fair few waiting in the interview booth, but we'll come back to that. Would you like me to run through these results, James? Both
yes, please. Yes, please, sir. You're far better than me at it.
Oh, I don't want to steal it away from you if you wanted to. Yannis Albert then wins the race for the GT3 by some 36 seconds. Incredible gap for him. Compare that to the 1.5 tenths of a second that Kalle Leskinen had over his fellow podium sitter, Aurimas Zilinskas, the Lithuanian, not quite able to get there. Gianni Terhar was just off of the podium in his home race. He'll be gutted, I'm sure, to miss out. He was ahead of the second of the two Finns and championship leader, Anton Kalo. Kalo was only a tenth and a half ahead of Ben Bennyworth come the checkered flag, and he led home a host of Brits with the likes of Will Soper, Jayden Scotton, Joe Glass and Adam Baker inside the top 10. Baker, the first driver to be lapped. He was joined in that regard by Matthew Jones and Andy Chell, 11th and 12th. The first of the Americans, Dean Tyler, in 13th. and Andrew Fellows, who we will get a word from in a minute, in P14. Dean Shrewsbury, Andre Montian, Lewis Plath, Joe Sparrow, Jason Baxter, and Owen Seward were a lot further back than that. Disappointing evenings for them. They will bounce back, I'm sure, in a couple of weeks' time. Over in the GT4s, though, and it was a good race in the end for William Humphrey. We'll see that gap just about now. 19 seconds, it was pretty much 20. Back to the Swedish Tristan Engelstad. And he was ahead of fellow Scandinavian Marius Hibner. Hibner was listed as a lap down, but of course he crossed the line after the GT3 winner, so that's not quite right. So don't take that as Humphrey beat Hibner by nearly 2 minutes there. Pedro Luis da Silva, the Portuguese driver, came fourth ahead of Latvian Niels Keuler in P5. Stephen Donnelly and Chris Jennings were with sixth and seventh, I should say, with Martin Kenyon. Ryan Stringer and home hero, another one of the home heroes, Nick Stubb, rounding out our top 10. Justin Eloff gave him a good run for his money, though. He finished 11th, ahead of Evan Main and Linus Petkevicius. Malcolm Coates and Bobby Moss finished in the top 15, with Callum Morrow, Simon Hunt, Ian Chambers, Daniel Poole, Lawrence Adapa, Liele Damstra, and Sean Clark, finishing at the final points-paying positions, and a couple of drivers who weren't able to quite reach the checkered flag. But that is all of the runners and riders that we had in the race today. 42 of them by the end of the night, James. And I'm thinking, can we just crack straight on with some of these interviews?
Absolutely, yes, Dora. You feel free to take the reins.
Right, well, we will first off drag in Andrew Fellows. It feels wrong to drag in anybody else. I feel awful not having Andrew in at some point before this season. Andrew, welcome in. First of all, can you hear us?
Good evening.
Good stuff, Andrew. Well, welcome in. Talk us through the race tonight. Actually, talk us through the differences between the 60 minutes and the 90 minutes, because I think that's the key point coming into this race. We've had a lot of the 60-minute races. How does it change when you get into this slightly longer format?
Well, for me, it was after about probably 10 minutes, so I kind of needed a comfort break, which didn't help. But yeah, no, having the pit stop and the fresh tyres was nice. And then towards the end, my tyres started to feel a bit tired again. And yeah, had a minor spin, but not too bad. Considering I bought the track at like 7 o'clock, I don't think I've done too bad.
No, you haven't indeed, and still points. That's going to be important for you. James, want to bring you in. I know you'll want to talk to Andrew here.
I just want to tell Andrew
difficult,
that
isn't it?
It's not me that ignores him every week. It's you, Dora.
Hey now. There's a lot of drivers that jump in, and it's always nice to get a word from a winner. And Andrew, and I'm expecting it from Andrew at some point in this season, but he's not quite got there. I mean, Andrew. Another point to make really is looking ahead to the rest of this season. Which tracks particularly are you aiming for? Where are you looking to really target as we get through the rest of this year?
I'll have a quick look at the track. I mean, Spa, I'm generally pretty strong at. I did the 24-hour there last year, and I was not too bad. I mean, I'm not Yanis quick, but Yanis was my teammate for the 24-hour, and I was around a second off him. So if I can be that pace, then it's going to help. But yeah, I don't know. Portimao maybe might be decent there. Done a few races there, so it's a bit of a tricky one really. But there's some good tracks coming up with obviously Milan, Le Mans, Catalonia and stuff. So it's gonna definitely be interesting.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And we wish you the best of luck. Before we let you go though, Andrew, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to on this stream? We'd love to hear who you've got, because I've ignored you for so long.
Obviously you guys for the broadcast. Yes, I did listen to it last week, which was quite funny to listen to. And yeah, just everyone that makes the championship possible, and everyone at Flatline and all the drivers. To be fair, there's some really good drivers in this. I thought joining GT3, I thought, I might be all right here, but yeah, I am struggling. These are top tier drivers, so fair play.
Yeah, but we will wish you the best of luck, Andrew, for the following weeks. I'm sure you'll be towards the front again, particularly at Spa, when we get there. But thanks for joining us, and I hope to speak to you in a couple of weeks' time.
No worries, thanks guys.
Cheers, Andrew.
Andrew,
Thanks.
Andrew, great to get a word from him after a race, and I haven't ignored him today. I think looking at who we've got, we haven't quite got our GT3 race winner, but we have got our GT4 race winner. So let's drag in William Humphrey after. There we go. After yet another fantastic display from him, it feels like this is Groundhog Day week after week. But William, welcome in. First of all, can you hear us?
Hello, lads. It's been a while.
It has, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like it's been that long because you've won again by a country mile once again. I guess really the only new question we can say, and I asked Andrew the same thing, but for you, slightly different situation, of course, being in a GT4. What's the differences that you find between the 60-minute and the 90-minute races? Does it change how you race at all, particularly with the two-stop factor coming in?
Me as an individual, no, not a lot. But on a team-based strategic side, it changes it quite a bit. I actually found it to be really, really good fun with the two-stop and managing tires, when to change them, when to take fuel, if you take a short stint in the middle of the race rather than in the end. It was really good fun and I wouldn't say a headache, but a bit of a maths equation to work out.
Yeah, indeed. But I mean, you worked it out pretty well. A great pace again from you tonight. How confident are you in terms of the championship at this stage? I know it's early stages.
Oh, judging by pace, I'm pretty confident, but we missed a round, which never helps. But we can always try our best and just get to the end of the season and see what happens there.
Well, we'll wish you the best of luck. James, I don't want to ice you out, but
Yeah, no, congratulations, William. Fantastic race result. Exactly what we're expecting. We want nothing less than to win every race. Otherwise, it makes our commentary seem like we don't know what we're talking about. But so this calculation about the fuel and tyres and stuff. Can you? I mean, me and Dara were kind of surmising throughout the broadcast. Can you just give us a bit of an insight without giving your strategy away? But I mean, what about, where did tyres fit into this? As in, how did you decide when to take the tyres?
Tires are mostly changed on how long the fuel takes, because fuel normally takes longer than tires. So, for example, the final stint, we only need like 20 liters of fuel, which means that tires will then take much longer. At that point, we don't need to take those tires because they're endurance tires, so they can run for those 2.5 hours. Which means that then we will, if we took the tires as well as that 20 liters of fuel, we'll be waiting for an extra 15-20 seconds on tires where we could just be going out on track.
So was it always the case that tyres were going to be at the first stop and then finish?
It was very dependent on what happened in your first stint. We had a few stint plans all the way up to A, B, C, D, and E and F. And if you went for a short stint in the middle of your stint, in the middle of the race, you wouldn't take your tyres because you'd be filling up with less fuel. But if you took the shortest stint at the end, then you would take your tyres on the first pit stop.
Sounds complicated, far too complicated for me. But I'm sure that you'd got Joe and you'd got Matt Jones in there, and all of you deciding what was going on. So brilliant race result, mate. Congratulations, as always. So before we let you go, is there anybody that you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I'd like to give a massive shout out to Glass Tech team, especially Dale Williams. He was the brains behind all this and did a brilliant job with this. I'd also like to give a shout out to my family, my friends, my partner, and the whole venture team when we went to Spa a couple of weeks ago.
Very good, mate. Very good. Well, I'm sure they're all listening and we'll appreciate that. So we'll catch up with you, no doubt, in a couple of weeks' time.
Thank you.
Well done, William. Congrats again. Great to speak to William Humphrey after yet another win for him. It's always a rare occurrence if he hasn't won the race, quite frankly, by the end of the night. Who else could we have a bit of a chat to? I'm looking down and I'm looking at Kalle Leskinen. Obviously P2 in the end and had to fend off quite a charge towards the end. So we're going to bring Kalle in. Kalle, welcome in. First of all, can you hear us?
Yes, hello.
Perfect. Well, welcome in. Congratulations on the P2, first of all. Talk us through how difficult it was to defend in the closing stages, because you were really put under quite a bit of pressure there.
Yeah, the pressure was insane from Zilinkas, and my tires were running out. So a couple of laps and he would have probably gotten me. But yeah, it was, the middle of the race was really easy. The guys behind me were like 4 seconds behind me, and but yeah, in the end, some bad cheated 4 passes, and Zilinkas got really close, and it was a really tough defend, and no mistakes were available to do.
Yeah, and talk us through the traffic aspect of it, because it did seem that it was difficult to really negotiate your way through, and there just kept to be more and more and more the GT4s that were
Yeah.
appearing in front of you.
Yeah, we were in Discord and just noticing that like 3 laps in a row, a GT4 or a GT3 spun out in front of me, and I thought it was like a message from a higher being that you will crash soon. So, yeah.
Well, it was a very stellar drive in the end, and great to keep the drivers behind. James, I want to bring you in because I couldn't defend like that. I don't know about you.
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not. I'm always at the back, so I don't have to worry about it. But yeah, congratulations, Calais. That was absolutely brilliant race. Just one kind of question from me. What's it like being in the flatline team? I've always wondered kind of what it's like, and you've kind of gone in and you've teamed up with Daniel, and you're doing really well.
Yeah, the guys are really nice, and we have a good time on the car while we're driving. And yeah, it's been really nice to be with the Flatland guys.
Brilliant, and you've got a beautiful looking livery as well. I have to say, it's one of my favourite liveries in the series. So did you do that, or did Andrew do that?
Pink team crossover livery.
Yeah, it's and what's the one in the word pink, by the way?
P1.
P1, of course it is.
Oh,
of course it is. Of course it is. Well, you know what that means? That means that you've put the pressure on yourself for 2 weeks' time to get P1. Now you've told us.
I chose #1 car for, I don't know why, but it's been working in the GT3 season, so hoping to do that here.
Brilliant, mate. Brilliant. Well, look, congratulations. A fantastic P2. Before we let you go, is there anybody that you want to give a shout out to on the broadcast?
Not especially anyone. No.
Okay, no problem at all. Well, look, have a great couple of weeks, and we will see you at the next round.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Great stuff, Calais. Thank you for joining us, and well done again, P2. Great result for him. Yet another fantastic drive in the GT3 class. I'm looking to try and get another couple of drivers in, James. Who can we look at? I think Marius Hibmer. Do you think it's a good idea to drag in GT4 driver?
Very good idea.
Went pretty nicely tonight. We'll drag him in now, and the Dane joins us. P3 in the end for you, Marius. Well, firstly, can you hear us?
Yep.
Good stuff. Well, P3 for you. Good result in the end. Podium coming your way. How pleased are you? Because I know you want to keep tabs in a way with William Humphrey, but he just seems on another level at the moment. How pleased are you just to keep getting those podiums rolling along once again?
I mean, to be honest with you, I'm quite disappointed with my drive tonight. I was so frustrated because I had so much more pace in practice. I was maybe like 6, 7, 8 cents down on what I was doing in practice on race pace, and with Tristan Engelstad, who's I'm usually a bit faster than him. He had a lot of pace tonight, props to him. So just couldn't really keep up, and was quite frustrated with myself. But it's still a podium. It's still decent points, so I'll take it.
And what learnings are you going to be able to take from this first 90-minute race? I mean, it's something different to what we've had so far this season. Is there anything that you're going to maybe do a little bit differently in a month's time when we get to Le Mans?
I don't think there's much really I need to be doing differently. Maybe focus a bit more on the fuel saving, because I didn't really try to fuel save tonight. I was more thinking about the pace, because I didn't really think I had the pace to go fuel saving. Maybe try and do that next time. Maybe try something different with the strategy. I think we had 5 different plans we could have run, or 5 different plans we were considering running, but ended up just going with what was plan A for us, so the most basic strategy. But maybe try something different next time also.
Good result for you either way, though. James, want to bring you in because P3, still a good result. Championship aspirations are still going to be there, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, Marius, and I think if you can get a podium on one of your not so good days, that bodes really, really well for the championship. So I certainly wouldn't beat yourself up too much over it. You look like you'd got great pace. Loving the livery, loving the tribute. So we did give a shout out to you on the stream, and we know that you've had a difficult week, and our thoughts are with you and all your family. for what must have been a very, very difficult week. So I think you can be very proud of yourself. P3 in class with a flying William Humphrey at the front. I think you've done really well there, Marius.
Thank you.
No problem. So what about the tyres? We've asked William about the tyres. Did you take yours at the first stop?
Yeah, I did take tires at the first stop. So I felt like I've probably gone too aggressive on the camber for my setup this week because the tires just fell off a cliff for me. But yes, I took tires on the first stop. And it wasn't the fuel actually didn't cover the amount of time you spent changing tires. Even though I put as much fuel as I could into it. So I was stuck in a bit kind of waiting for my tires to change. Yep.
Okay, well, I mean, what about 2 rounds time or 2 weeks time, 1 round's time? How are you looking forward to the next round?
Yeah, where is it the next round is again? I know there's Le Mans and then is Imola, right?
I think it
Imola's
is
next,
Imola, yeah.
Yeah, Imola. Oh, I'm not looking forward to Imola at all. It's probably my least favorite track in the world, so but I don't know. I'll get my head down in practice. I didn't really do as much practice as I usually do for tonight. I'll get some more done for Imola, more done for Le Mans as well. I'm really looking forward to Le Mans. Only other track on the calendar that I don't really like is Catalunya, but to be fair, I've only ever driven it on the F1 game, so I don't know how it's gonna be in a GT4. But yeah, Imola, not looking forward to it. Le Mans, very much looking forward to it.
But I'm sure that you'll find that sometimes the tracks that you're not looking forward to deliver some surprising results. So we'll keep everything crossed for you anyway. Before we let you go, Marius, is there anybody that you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I'll give a massive shout out to my granddad for being an amazing person. And I really miss him, and he's just been great. And then, as usual, I'll also give a shout out to my sponsor, racinggood.com.
That's absolutely lovely, Marius, and I'm sure he'll be very, very proud of you. So have a lovely couple of weeks, and we'll see you on track then.
Right, see you. Cheers.
Brilliant. Thanks, Marius. Congratulations again. And yeah, I echo what James said just a moment ago, but hope to speak to you in a couple of weeks' time. Thanks, Marius. Right then, I'm looking at who we've got left, James, and thinking we can get one more driver in. What do you think?
We can do whatever you want to do, Dara. Following that interview,
I
we
think
can do whatever you want.
I think we'll get one more driver in, and I think it's only fair to get Gianni Terhar in from his home race. It didn't necessarily go how he wanted it to, but, you know, the Dutchman on the Dutch circuit. Gianni joins us now. Welcome in, Gianni. Can you hear us, first of all?
Hallo, ik kan jullie horen.
Well, oh gosh, my Duolingo Dutch isn't going to help me here. Talk us through how you're feeling after that race, because you were looking so good in the early stages. Are you happy with a P4, or did you feel like you were looking for just a little bit more by the end?
Yeah, after all the races that I had a bit of, was not in the best mood anymore, because I ended up with qualifying most of the time in the top 3, sometimes even on pole, and then ended up P11, P7, etc. So that I finally got to manage on, I think, even the hardest track to have a good harmony with all the cars. I think, yeah, only one slowdown, and for the rest I had basically no contacts at all. Just a very clean race. I think with the GT4 is also a very good synchronized. Yeah, I don't know the good word for that, but
Yep.
yeah, it felt like good racing, and yeah, for me this was the max possible, and that is what I'm now aiming for at the moment. So very happy.
And talk us through how you're feeling about it in the championship. Of course, we're going to Imola in a couple of weeks' time, Le Mans in a month's time for another 90-minute race. How do you feel like you're settling into the championship? What are your aspirations by the end of the season?
I have my championships hopes a bit down, because I noticed that doesn't work very well. So I'm now just focusing on enjoying it, having fun, be more aggressive, but also still be safe. Don't make it easy for everyone, and yeah, have some clean fights, which today I've had a lot of them. So of the 4 races, I think this was the most enjoyable, and also the one I'm the most proud of.
Well, there you go, James. I mean, we thought it went well up here in the commentary box. Shani thought it went well down there. It's good to get in P4, isn't it?
You did. Brilliant race, mate. Absolutely brilliant race. Just one question from me. Was there a point in the race where you were carrying a bit of damage to the front?
I think that was the slowdown that you saw because I was constantly in P3, I think, at the point. And then, yeah, I got to slow down because I had to avoid another car. And then, yeah, I had the 1 second didn't go away, even if I tried to slow down a lot. And then 3 cars overtook me. So then I got P6. And then after, it's just very hard to overtake cars if they are closely on the same speed. And luckily, I gained 2 positions in the end. So, yeah, I tried to get the maximum result. And I think this was what it could have been. Max.
Well, brilliant, mate. I mean, you certainly entertained us all evening. We were trying our best to keep up with who was pitting and who was coming out on which lap and the gaps, and some people pitted early, and so yeah, it certainly made for an experience for us, that's for sure. And your teammate Tristan had a very good race tonight, so presumably that kind of gives you guys a little bit of kind of momentum in the team's championship as we look forward to the next few rounds.
Yeah, I was really proud of him. I think this, we are always in the same voice chat, of course, together. And this time we actually said to each other, we're just going to be muted. We're just going to focus. And we try to get a good result this time because Tristan definitely has the speed to compete in the top. And today he clearly showed he is capable too. Yeah, I finally managed to stay in the top 5 without any incidents. A lot of clean racing as well. So yeah, if we can keep this momentum up instead of focusing on maybe only winning, but just on surviving and getting as high position consistent as possible, then yeah, team championship looks a lot more promising.
Fantastic, mate. Well, I'm sure that you'll get to grips with it in your normal way, and by the end of it, you'll be right up there pushing the likes of Yanis and Jason and all the other guys. So before we let you go, Johnny, is there anybody that you want to give a shout out to on the broadcast?
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to everyone again. We all had a very difficult race. The GT4s had it difficult with the super aggressive GT3s, including me. And the other GT3s had a very tough time with navigating everyone. But for my view this time, everyone did their absolute best for it. So really shout out to them. Of course, Tristan for showing what he actually can do in that GT4. It was insane. And yeah, of course, you guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, have a good couple of weeks, and we'll see you on track at Imola in 2 weeks' time.
Ik zie jullie over 2 weken.
That as well.
Thanks, Johnny.
That as well.
We're in the Dutch Grand Prix, so we need to get the Dutch language.
I'll do some. Johnny, I'll do some practicing for next time. Okay.
Sounds good.
Ik spreek een beetje Nederlands, but that's about it. That's just literally about as far as my Dutch can go. But I'll do a little bit more Duolingo for you, Gianni, and if we speak to me in a couple of weeks' time, then I will do my best to throw some words at you. We'll see about that. But
I'll try to get
thanks
a win.
again for joining us. Well, thanks for that, Gianni. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to speak to you soon. Good luck.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Johnny Tao there. Great to get a word from him. Great to get a word from loads of our drivers, James. And I think that's a fantastic way to end out the stream.
Definitely, mate. Definitely. Really good night's racing. Something a little bit different in terms of trying to work out, from the timing screen. Just looking at the stats, it looks like we've had a few drop frames as we've gone through, but hopefully nothing too serious. Thank you to everybody that's joined us in the chat and also contributed and liked and subscribed to the channel. So that's absolutely brilliant. Thank you. So moving on to next week, Dara. So we are at Imola. Not next week. We keep saying that, don't we? We keep saying next week. But
Yeah, exactly.
We get the benefit of sitting and watching the Danny Lee Porsche Cup next week. That's over on Apex Racing TV. So yeah, 2 weeks time in Imola. Back to the normal kind of 60-minute race. So its normal service will be resumed, and hopefully we can have some close and tight racing. I think Aqua Minerale is going to be interesting if you come up, because you've got Aqua Minerale and then you've got the chicane just after it. I imagine that's going to be pretty tricky for some of these GT3 drivers as they come up to those GT4s.
Yeah, I mean, I think generally, to summarise Imola for a couple of weeks' time, it would generally be tight, twisty, historic, difficult for multi-class racing, and I think that's going to be the thing that we see in a couple of weeks' time. The GT3s are going to struggle to get through on the GT4s, but that's going to be a real critical factor. And whoever can negotiate their way through the traffic the best is going to be the ones to get themselves a really good result. And I think that's what we got to look forward to for Imola in a couple of weeks.
And we certainly will. So to round out the stream, again, massive thank you to our series sponsors, Trophy AI, Cam for the personalised trophies, VRS and GP2 Group. Not forgetting, of course, Motorsport UK, the esports division. Anybody that wants to get racing with ESR, we do have our Thursday evening GT3 league that runs 2 splits, an A split and a B split. All seats are currently full, but we have had 2 or 3 withdrawals, and we are going to be getting in touch with anybody on the waiting list to see if they want that kind of half-season pass, so to speak. And we will also be releasing information about our Season 9 shortly. So if you are interested in getting onto that GT3 grid on a Thursday night, A and B split, 120 seats available. Make sure that you're in the ESR Discord in advance to get the notice of the new series. Believe it or not, seats do go quite quickly. You'd never think it with 120 spaces available, but they seem to. So yeah, bear that in mind. We've got the Sunday evening, which is what you've seen this evening, the European GT Championship. We're in kind of coming up to sort of almost halfway through of that, and we alternate on Sundays with the Danny Lee Porsche Cup, which is broadcast over on Apex Racing TV, and that's alternating with the European GT Championship. And then we also have a free league, which is every Tuesday evening and every Saturday afternoon. So that's the ESR Practice League. That anybody that wants to get on track with us is more than welcome to jump into the Discord. The link is below in the video description. Jump in, join the Practice League, get on track with the guys, and see if racing within ESR is something that you're interested in. I guess that's all from me, Dara. Any final words from you before we wrap up the stream?
I don't think so, particularly other than really looking forward to the race in a couple of weeks' time, and a great way to start off the 90-minute races tonight. Sets us up well for the next couple that we'll have at the start of June, and then again at the end of June, actually 2 in June, just about, because obviously I'm slightly longer than 4 months, but 4 weeks, but yeah, looking forward to them. Really looking forward to them as well, and the championship's really finely poised now as well, I think. So yeah, can't wait. And GT3's on Thursday as well. It's going to be fantastic.
It certainly is. Okay, well, look, that wraps it up for us. So thank you to everybody that's joined us in the chat and also watching the stream. If you've liked what you've seen, please leave a like to the video. That does help the algorithm and helps promote the ESR coverage for our drivers, their liveries, the time they put into the liveries, and also the series sponsors and us as a league. So that would be massively appreciated. And we will be back in 2 weeks' time for the next round. So have a lovely evening. For those in the UK, enjoy the bank holiday tomorrow, and we will see you soon.
For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.
Are you spending a lot of time looking for setups and struggling for faster lap times? Are you tired of searching online for answers? Would you like to get setups, analysis and tutorials from some of the best sim racers in the world like Ralph Alla, Mitchell de Jong, Martin Krunker, Josh Rogers and many more? If so, virtualracingschool.com is the answer you've been looking for. VRS data packs provide hot laps from our professional coaches for you to analyse and replicate. They provide tutorials that walk you through the fastest laps and what the pros did to achieve the best times. And they provide the setups you need to ensure your car is competitive in both oval and road racing. If you're ready to get faster and reach more podiums sooner than later, just go to virtualracingschool.com and sign up for a free account today.